I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. All right. Happy Thursday, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Sabby Sabs podcast. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. If you're new, I do want to let you know that Sabby Sabs podcast is a part of Revolutionary Blackout Network. You can catch me there on Thursdays for the Sabby and JB show, and you can catch me here on Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. Shout out to everyone watching on YouTube, Rockfin, Twitter, and Rumble, and welcome back, guys. We are going to kick things off with our special guest, and you have seen him here before. Really quick, I do want to show you what we are going to discuss tonight, ladies and gentlemen. There's a lot of things happening in the world of news, and so we really have to pay attention to what is going on. Tonight, we are discussing, looks like Candace Owens was right about Jared Kushner. We are going to give you a big update about what is happening with Jared Kushner and Gaza. It's more people need to talk about the story, guys. Like, I'm not kidding you. This is absolutely insane. But we're going to get into that discussion. We're also going to discuss, if you haven't heard about this, Gavin Newsom veto and why people are angry about this. What does this mean about his political prospects? Why did Gavin Newsom veto those reparation bills in California? We're also going to discuss AOC and Bernie Sanders had a town hall last night. And what does this mean for the Democratic Party? We're going to highlight some of the clips from that segment. And what did they say about Joe Biden? This is a big one. We're also discussing Zohran Mandami seems to be flipping a little bit more. Recently, he made a comment at an event that he hosted in Park Slope neighborhood in Brooklyn, which is a pretty wealthy neighborhood. He is talking to the Jewish community there. What did Zohran Mandami say that has people throwing their arms up in the air? We got to spotlight this. And of course, last but not least, our special guest tonight is Garland Nixon. We are going to discuss what is happening with Venezuela. I haven't had a chance to talk about that recently, and it is not good. So, is the U.S. trying to go to war with Venezuela? Let's go ahead and bring in our special guest. He's the host of the Garland Nixon Show on YouTube. Welcome back, Garland.
Hey, Sabrina, thanks a lot for inviting me. It's been a while, but, I'm often lurking in the chat. I maybe not be commenting, but I'm watching your shows and keeping up with it, with all your good works.
Just double check. Eric, is the audio okay? Eric, can you? Okay, yeah, I guess it's fine.
You hearing me okay?
Yeah, I think it's fine. Someone said audio, but I don't know. I think it's fine. So I just want to let you know, I did see you earlier today on the Duran. Yeah. Great job on there. For those who don't know, like, Garland Nixon covers foreign policy quite a bit on his YouTube channel, but he frequents also on the Duran. Garland Nixon also usually will bring on, like, Scott Ritter, I think maybe like once a week or so.
Usually, yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll
So,
be I'm pretty sure it looks like I'm going to be hosting George Galloway's show again this Sunday.
oh wow, oh cool. All right, so you guys can see him on Moats TV. I love that show. George Galloway, they kill it over there. Um, Venezuela. This is a big one. I want to show everybody this announcement that was made from the Trump administration. Trump administration authorizes a covert CIA action in Venezuela. This is big news here, ladies and gents. The development comes as the U.S. military is drawing up options for President Trump to consider, including possible strikes inside the country. So we know that Trump has been coming after Maduro. They are blaming Maduro for drug trafficking in the United States. I feel like that's an excuse that they're using because Venezuela does have a lot of oil. I think that's what this is really about. But it goes on to say here the authorization is the latest step in the Trump administration's intensifying pressure campaign against Venezuela. For weeks, the U.S. military has been targeting boats off the Venezuelan coast. It says are transporting drugs, killing 27 people. American officials have been clear privately that the end goal is to drive Mr. Maduro from power. So I do want to get your opinion about this, Garland. The fact that Trump is acknowledging that he is authorizing the CIA to take action in Venezuela.
Well, and this isn't the first time. In fact, if people check out Max Blumenthal over at the Gray Zone, he has a good segment where he interviews one of the people who worked with the Trump administration in his prior 4 years and worked with them in an attempt to overthrow the Venezuelan government before. So this is not new. You know, we had the Juan Guaido segment saga go on for a while. But, Venezuela is very, very tough. It's unlike, a lot of the other South American countries. If you want, I visited there in 2020. I was an election observer per se, but we traveled around the country, met with a lot of people all over the country, met with opposition forces. If you want, I could give you a little bit of background on what I know about Venezuela that makes it so difficult for the imperialists to overthrow the government and steal their resources.
Yeah, I want to hear a little bit about that because, again, like you said, he tried to do this. He implemented a coup during his first presidential term in Venezuela. Anya Parampil wrote a book about that. You guys should check it out. It's called Corporate Coup, where they really broke that down. But what is that about? What is it? Because I know that Venezuela has billions of barrels of oil, and we all know Trump's kind of like he has no filter, so he'll just come out and just say we want the oil. We know he's been known for doing that. But why do you think it is difficult for those imperialist practices to happen in Venezuela?
There are a number of things particular to Venezuela. Number one, it's a large country. It's about the size of France and Germany combined. A lot of Venezuela is inhospitable to boots on the ground, a lot of jungle, a lot of mountains, a lot of mountains with jungles, so it's not the kind of place you would ever want to go in on foot. You send troops in on foot. It's just one ambush point after another. Another thing about Venezuela, a couple of interesting things. One of the games that they like to play, such as in Syria, is to buy out and bribe the people in high positions in the military. Well, there's a problem with that in Venezuela, but why that wouldn't work of all places. So one of the things that's happened in South America, in these Central and South America, these former Spanish colonies, was when the Spaniards left, they would leave a small group of 10, 20, 30%, whatever the case may be, up to 30, but sometimes 5 and 10% of actual Spaniards. They weren't indigenous, they weren't mixed with this was an elite ruling class, and they would institute minority rule. So a bunch of European Spaniards would rule the country. One of the things that they did, I mean, all you have to do is look at Mexican soap operas, and you'll notice that none of those people look like actually the Mexicans that we see every day. They all look like Spaniards, right? And the TV, you watch TV, and I'm like, why is it that the Latino people I see on a day-to-day basis look kind of brown and indigenous, but when I turn on all these TV programs, they all look like they're from Spain, right? Because they are. But one of the things that Hugo Chavez instituted, a number of things. One was this: in a lot of these countries, or in all of the other ones, the only people who are allowed to go to the military academies are these Spaniards, the right-wing Spaniards. So the military is run by the minority in the same way that the government has minority rule. The militaries have minority rule. But Hugo Chavez changed that and said, okay, everybody goes through. And so what you have in Venezuela is a mostly minority, indigenous, and black led military. And they're loyal to the Chavista, the Chavez revolution. They're Chavistas. So you can't go in there and buy them out because they're come from amongst the people. So that doesn't work very well. Another thing that's interesting was one of the things they did was they armed the hell out of the people. People are in militia by the millions. And they armed them. Here's your AK-47 and bullets, and some of them, when it's time to call up the militias, far more by the millions. So you have millions of people, millions, whole communities, whole towns. Everybody's armed, millions. And they, trust me when I tell you this, they will let you know we will fight for her. They will point their finger. You tell the Americans we will fight. I mean, women. So you go in there, everybody's shooting at you. By the millions. There's going to be, you go by a small town sitting up on a hill, they're going to cut you to ribbons. They're all going to be armed with AK-47s and the like. Interesting. Isn't it interesting how you have this revolutionary government who says, oh no, we don't want to disarm the people. We'll arm the people because we know they'll fight on behalf of the government because they believe in the revolution. So my point being, there ain't no way to take Venezuela. And if you took Venezuela, there's no way to hold it because where you gonna, the whole thing is mountains. You're in Caracas. One of the things that Hugo Chavez did, they've got these big, like those ski lift kind of things. And they have these ski lifts that they put in so that the people from the towns around on these mountains can get on the ski lift free of charge and they can come into Caracas and go out. And, it gives them an easy way in and out. But that just tells you it's very mountainous. There's no way to move around here. So, what could they do? They could throw some long range missiles at the capital or something. This is a big country. So Maduro could be anywhere in that country. I'm sure by now they know the decapitation strike game. So there could be towns or mountains. They could be anywhere in this gigantic country. There's no way to really tell where they are. So it would be very difficult because I will guarantee you right now, everybody's on the lookout to see if anything's, shady going on. It's going to be difficult for the CIA. Now, apparently that's his game plan. Oh my gosh. Well, we're not going to be able to just confront them militarily and attack them. So we'll put in CIA hit squads or whatever. It's not going to be easy to operate. And even, I don't believe they could, but let's just say for the sake of argument, you're able to kill the government. Then what? The people will fight you. All of them. They will shoot at you and they will not stop. There's no way that this would be, imagine Vietnam if everybody was armed.
Right. That's a really good point. And you know what? It seems like everything is lining up perfectly for them to say, okay, we need to go to war with Venezuela. Like, let's go back to the Nobel Peace Prize. I know we were talking about that. Maria. Right. So corporate media is celebrating Maria. But when you look into Maria, you see, oh, she's just another Western puppet. She's a Zionist. She begged Donald Trump to bomb her own country and said that Venezuela needs to work alongside Israel. So, but a lot of people don't have time to do that research. Like if they just have the corporate media, segment on, say you're in the waiting room at the doctor's office or something, and a lot of times they may have corporate media on. You may not have time to look into that, but think about it. If we connect the dots, Maria was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize, and they said that she's fighting for her people against the dictator Maduro. Now you have Donald Trump saying we're sending the CIA in Venezuela. So it's almost as if they lined everything up perfectly to convince the American people we need to go to war with Venezuela.
It's absurd. And as soon as they're up to no good, it's all lies as soon as they use this word dictator. That is the word. That is like just calling somebody a name. That's the way of saying I hate you, because the interesting thing is they call Maduro a dictator, Putin's a dictator, everybody's a dictator, but they never define what a dictator is. Because I've heard people say, yes, Maduro's a dictator. I'd say, explain to me how. Huh? They know to call him a dictator, but when I say, well, okay, I don't think he's a dictator. I've been to Venezuela, and I don't think he's a dictator. You haven't, and you do. Tell me, what is your definition of a dictator, and how does Nicolas Maduro meet that definition? He was Hugo Chavez's right-hand man. He's a former bus driver. He rose up through the government. The people support him. He gets 64% of the vote. How's that a dictator? How did the dictator get 64% of the vote?
But both administrations have said that the people didn't vote for him. Both administrations say that he stole it.
And both administrations said that the other guy stole it, because the Biden administration said that Trump stole it in 2016, and Trump said that Biden stole it in 2020. Everybody stole it. Apparently, according to these guys, there's no such thing as an election where it wasn't stolen. But I'll tell you who didn't say that. The people who went. Jimmy Carter went to Venezuela as a election observer and the Carter Institute, and left and said, this is the cleanest election I've ever seen in my life. I wish we had it. This is Jimmy Carter, a former president. I went. I said the same thing. Wow, I wish we had this. So it's just another, you know what? They got oil. If Venezuela, as Gerald Salente had said, if their number one export was broccoli, we wouldn't be having this discussion. But since it's gold and oil and all kinds of things like that, well, now they just got to get some, they've got to get some democracy, don't they? I tell you what disappoints me, though, and that is the American people that buy into these. They don't come up with new lies. It's the same lie over and over from the same people. And these poor schlemazzles out here believe that stuff. Yes, so-and-so is a dictator. And I'm like, really? We got to go down that road again? The dictator role. Why do dictators always have so much oil? I guess that's the definition of a dictator. You got a lot of oil in your country? You're a dictator.
That's a good point. And to prove that here, you guys see, this is also happening. Breaking, Trump announces that the U.S. is preparing for a new war and attack on Venezuela. We are certainly looking at Venezuelan land now. We have the sea under control. So, I mean, they're putting it all out there. Again, this is who people were calling the peace, the peace president, right? So sending American troops to Venezuela, according to what you were just telling us, Garland, that would be a death wish.
Oh, it would be bad news. I mean, what are you going to do with hundreds and hundreds, millions, literally millions of armed people who are ready to fight for the revolution? Nicolas Maduro says, I will declare a condition of armed struggle. Well, you know what that means for socialists? That means time to fight, and they are ready to fight. So, and I suspect, there's a lot of socialists and communists in South America that would be flocking to Venezuela, saying, oh, good, it's time for the struggle against the imperialists. Count me in. It would be a very serious mistake to attack Venezuela. And Venezuela does have some conventional weapons. They've got some Su-30s. They've got some anti-shipping missiles. They've got some air defense. It is possible that they could the United States could get a real bad bloody nose. What does Trump do if he attacks Venezuela and some planes get shot down, some ships get sunk by anti-shipping missiles? I mean, for God's sake, we lost to Yemen, and we're going to attack Venezuela? Doesn't bode well for the U.S. military, I'll tell you that much, even conventionally.
Yeah, even people in the Caribbean have been killed. I want to show people this video that came through, and shout out to Camilla at Camilla Press. Report: the United States murdered 2 men from Trinidad and Tobago in yesterday's U.S. strike on a boat in the Caribbean Sea during the fake anti-drug military operations in Venezuela. I just want to play just a little bit of this here.
2 men believed to be Trinbagonians were killed in the latest U.S. drone strike of Venezuelan waters. And now Las Cuevas family is demanding answers.
They say Chad Joseph wasn't a trafficker, just a young man trying to come home. Jensen Levent went to the fishing village to speak with the family.
Like most of the men gathered here at the Las Cuevas fishing depot, Chad Joseph was a fisherman. Both his relatives and residents are denying strenuously that he was involved in drug trafficking. They say his killing was unjust. When Prime Minister Kamala Persad-Bissessar said the United States should kill alleged drug dealers violently, no citizen was listed among the dead. On the U.S.'s fifth airstrike, Trinidadians Chad Joseph and another man identified only as Samaru were among 6 people
that were killed. I can't play this part because it actually shows the attack there. But that's another thing. Like when they have been attacking these boats, I mean, it's just like these 2 guys in the Caribbean. I don't think a lot of people know about this, but how do they have proof that these 2 men were trafficking drugs and not just on a boat?
Well, to have a discussion about whether they have proof is to have a discussion about rules and laws and justice. And what we're looking at is a rogue country in the United States that violates all rules. They don't even pay attention to the rules here when it comes to our constitutional rights. They're sending troops into the streets. So certainly when it comes to being on the high seas, they're just violating the laws. Number one, we do not have jurisdiction out there. Okay, we have no jurisdiction on the high seas. Number two, if we were accusing someone of something where, by the way, we don't have jurisdiction, then we would need proof. But even proof would be no good because we have no jurisdiction to arrest them or anything else, much less kill them. It's simply, well, you know what? Politically speaking, we need to blow up a couple boats. And we'll just say they were drug boats. Who cares? And then we'll have some video, and then we'll just blow them up. And that, I mean, they're thinking of blowing up attacking an entire country. So this is simply extra legal activity. It is this hegemonic mindset that says, we're the United States. We can go around the world, do anything we want, kill anybody we want, blow up anything we want. Why? Because they want to steal Venezuela's oil. It's just like a drug addict who's out of money. And so what are you going to do? Well, I'm going to go rob somebody. That's all it is. They want to go rob Venezuela. Common hoodlums, thieves running this country that are simply saying, hey, Venezuela, they got, you know what it's like? It's like every now and then you turn on TV and you see where like some old person who was 79 years old went to the bank and they were barely trundling across the street and some young punk beat them up and took their money or whatever, right? And you're like, man, why would you do that to a weak old person? And they're like, you just answered your own question, because they're old and they're weak and I'm young and I'm strong and I'm a predator and I can do whatever I want to them and steal their money. It's a sociopathic, I want this and I can get it, I'll take it. Who cares who else gets hurt? That's our government. Venezuela has gas, has oil, they got gold, they got things of that nature. We want it. We have some very serious economic problems. We'll just go steal theirs. We're trying to do it to Russia right now and China and everyone else. So why not Venezuela? They seem to be the weakest. Maybe we can do that. But I think that in the same way that we got a surprise from Yemen and Iran and these other countries, the world has changed, technology has changed, people will fight. And if they pick a fight in Venezuela, it's not going to turn out well for the U.S.
Yeah. And for people who are not aware, a lot of times you'll hear people refer to these countries as third world countries or, they're very poor, et cetera. But a lot of these countries have immense amount of resources. And that's really what it comes down to. Same thing with like Haiti, for example. I mean, we stole from Haiti. Woodrow Wilson, for those who aren't aware, he sent the Marines into Haiti way back in the day. And not only did they steal from Haiti, but they even took over their banking at that point in time. So a lot of times people point to Haiti and they say it's such a poor country, but they don't realize that like the US, France, and even under the Bill Clinton's administration, we robbed Haiti blind. Right. So people also need to think about this when we talk about people being displaced.
Well, the U.S. used to control Venezuela. Yes, the U.S. used to control Venezuela. And when they control Venezuela, what they did to Venezuela is what they do in a lot of other countries. They set their economy up so the only thing they sold was oil. Right. They didn't grow. They don't want you to. One of the big things is they don't want a country to grow their own food. That way we can snatch the food away from them and control them at any time. So they set up Venezuela so it was an oil producing country, but not doing much else. When Hugo Chavez comes to power and Venezuela starts getting independent, the United States sanctioned away 99% of Venezuela's income. and then started arguing, yeah, the Venezuelans, look at this, the Maduro government, they're stealing the money, and they're struggling because these people are corrupt, and all. You sanctioned away 99% of their money and then blamed them for being impoverished. And that's what the U.S. does. Same with Haiti. We create we steal everything that's not so nailed down. Then we put in a bunch of colonial puppets to run things so that we can steal the things that are nailed down and then say, well, the government of that country is corrupt. The government of countries that are corrupt, we put corruption in. If they aren't corrupt, then we overthrow them and put somebody in to make sure that they are.
Yeah, they really do. What they want to do is they want to overthrow Maduro and they want to put in a Western puppet. Same thing happened with Libya. Remember, they told us that Gaddafi was killing his own people. It obviously didn't have to show us any proof, and we just believed it. You know, I mean, like, it's just things like this. And so we've seen what happens to these countries when the West does come in and they take over. Oftentimes, the people in those countries are worse off after these takeovers than they were before. And you could point to the same thing when it comes to Saddam Hussein, which I mentioned before on the show, which is that say what you want about Saddam Hussein, but when Saddam Hussein was in power, he was able to keep certain things in check. When the U.S. went in and overthrew Saddam Hussein, that opened the door to ISIS. So you see that the people there were worse off. Look at the people in Afghanistan. I mean, it's just, we're known for doing this like all over the world. And then, you know, for us Americans, you know, it's easy for us to sit back and point our fingers and say, why are people living this way in that country? Like, why is that country so poor? And just not knowing the history, then you get lost in the sauce and you just think that, well, we're just exceptional. No, we steal and kill people.
And I don't know if have you seen the latest statement from Zohran Mamdani?
Garland,
who is what I thought he was. He is what I thought he was.
I'm gonna talk about that later tonight, but
okay.
Yep.
He is exactly what I thought he was. At a time when the U.S. is trying to overthrow Venezuela and the U.S. has decided, oh, we're going to, go back to this Monroe Doctrine. And he comes out and he denounces Maduro and the Cuban leader and their dictators and they're suppressing free and fair elections. The guy's a fraud and his wife's a spook. Somebody out there, do me a favor. Find somewhere that his wife existed before 2022 and explain to me, find somewhere that she existed before 2022. I'm a trained investigator. I can't find anything. The only thing I find is inferences that say, yes, during COVID, she lived with her family, but you will never find anything about any members of her family, no matter how hard you search. Even there are articles that say his wife, her family. And when you get down to family, it says, she lived with her family during the COVID, but it never says who they are. And explain. And they in all of these articles, right? They say, yes, she is a Palestinian activist for the Palestinians, right? So she's an activist for the Palestinians. But why is it that I can never find a statement from her? I can never find any event she's ever been to, anything she's ever spoken, anything relating to, so she's a Palestinian activist, but you can never find anything that she's ever said or done related to that. And last of all, explain this to me. So where she first seemed to have popped up is in 2022, where she was working with the BBC on a documentary. The BBC loves her. Reuters loves her. The New Yorker loves her. The New York Times loves her. The Washington Post loves her. A Palestinian activist. And all of the neocon papers love the ground that she walks on, works with her, puts her art out. A Palestinian activist. She's apparently the only Palestinian activist that they like. But she's a Palestinian activist. Nowhere can I find her activism or anything about her before 2022. The only thing I really found out, she claims to have gone to a college in Richmond. And I found that one of these like alumni associations local from Richmond sent something to her and said, hey, you went to school in Richmond. I think it was VRI or something, Virginia something Institute. What was your favorite place in Richmond to hang out? She never answered. I suspect she's never been to Richmond. So how would she answer? That's about it. There's nothing. I'm convinced that she's an operation, that she's an operative. And by the way, she told the New York Times that she was born in Syria because they say she's a Syrian-born or Syrian activist. However, when Mandani's campaign was asked where was she born, they said Houston, Texas. So was either born in Syria or Houston, Texas. We're not sure. She seems to have no family or no parents anywhere that we can ever find. Nothing we can connect her to. Know where she went to school. Know where she went to high school. Where she grew up. Who her friends were. Nothing. She's a ghost or a spook.
Wow, I didn't know that. I did
Look
not
it
know.
up. Find something on her. Best of luck.
Well, because I do want to ask you about the Gaza plan that
Sure.
Trump did here. But since you brought that up, what do you say to those? Because, you know, I've had this discussion with people back and forth. And I just tell people, don't put all your hope and faith in a politician, right? And to hold them accountable. But ultimately, I feel like people should spend 80% of their time doing like mutual aid, direct action, that type of stuff, doing things to build dual power, and not spending 80% just hoping on a politician, because they will disappoint you. What do you say to those New Yorkers that say, okay, he's not perfect. I just want to have my rent not increase anymore. What about those people?
Well, I'll put it like this. I don't believe any of that's going to happen. I believe that this guy's going to come in. But here's the thing, you know, there's nothing wrong with voting for him if you feel like that. You know, there are people who say, look, it's important because he's pushing back against Zionism. And so therefore it's important to get him in so that people will see that you can push back against Zionism and win. Well, he's pushed back against Netanyahu. I know that. He said I'd arrest Netanyahu. But
he started walking that back already, by the way.
Yeah, and by the way, he said that, but he can't arrest Netanyahu because the New York City police does not have jurisdiction based on international court when the United States isn't even a member of the international court. I mean, it's good rhetoric, but there's no real substance to it. He couldn't really do it. I'd arrest Netanyahu. It's great to say that when you know you can't do it. I don't trust him. But that's fine. People can vote him. I mean, if you love AOC and Bernie Sanders, you'll probably love this guy. He's already got with Bernie. He's already called him Maduro's a dictator.
And that brings me to the Trump peace plan here. Some people didn't realize this, but shout out to Echo. So much for Trump's peace plan, LOL, which Israel did not even sign. And you can see 5 sites did report this. No, Israel did not sign the Declaration for Enduring Peace and Prosperity on October 13th. The declaration was signed by the leaders of the United States, Egypt, Qatar, and Turkey at a summit in Sharm el-Sheikh. And then it goes on to say there more about the specifics. What's your take on this, Garland? Because I saw quite a bit of people celebrating when this ceremony took place. They were like, yay, you know, the Palestinian people finally get to go back home, etc. And then not even 24 hours, Israel was already killing Palestinian people again. What do you think about this fact that a lot of people didn't notice that Israel did not sign that document?
Well, you know, here's the thing, though, when it comes to the Trump team, Trump's is, you know, he's the entertainer, right? So he's real good at ceremonies. The important thing was that he had a ceremony, that he had, you know, like the old days when the politicians they're building a new firehouse, and the politician would be there to shovel the first shovel of dirt and a ribbon cutting ceremony and take all of these pictures. Look what we're doing in your community, right? That's Trump. Those are the kinds of things that he likes, ceremonial kind of stuff. The problem is when it comes to policy, there's no depth. So they've got a ceasefire agreement, so-called. But when you start trying to dig into it, what's going to happen here? What foundations have been laid? You know what I mean? What agreements have they made with their, okay, so some Muslim countries will come in. Which countries have agreed and how many soldiers are they? Shouldn't you have that all done But you know what I mean? Most of the time, the professionals will have met with what if they say, okay, Muslim countries will send soldiers in. And you ask all the Muslim countries, which one of you guys want to send soldiers? They're all like, hey, we ain't getting involved in that crap. You got to have that ironed out beforehand. You got to have the details ironed out, which is what the Trump people, they don't do. They do it backwards. So Trump wanted to release the doves and the balloons and have fireworks and say, look what I've done. Time for my Nobel Peace Prize. But they never do the background. So there's really no there. There's a peace plan. There was a celebration. He didn't have buy-in from the parties because, the Israelis are not competent to buy in of anything because they're, kind of barbaric lunatics at this point as a society. The only thing that can happen with Israel is you have to force something on them, and the U.S. ain't going to force nothing on them. So I think, I'll say this, my prediction was, for a while, they got to get this stopped before the 1st of January when primary season kicks in and all these people are going to be primary and Democrats and a bunch of them Republicans who are pissed saying, hey, I didn't know we were the United States of Israel, right? Some of them are going to get primaried. So I think the plan is we got to shut this thing down before primary season because this is going to go real bad for us if it's going on during primary season. So in my opinion, their concerns were it's internal politics more than anything else. And of course, Trump winning the ceremony, he got the ceremony. But how do you hold an agreement together that has no foundation, that has no details done? And you're dealing with a lunatic, genocidal, knuckle dragging government of Israel.
Yeah, we're already seeing some things already play out. I don't know if you saw this, but Congressman Seth Moulton, who is representative from my state of Massachusetts, he just announced that he is refunding AIPAC's money and he will not be taking donations from AIPAC going forward. But then he also said in his statement that he's still a friend of Israel. He just doesn't like that AIPAC is aligned with Netanyahu's government. And so that, again, it leaves the door open to the fact that if Netanyahu, were to be removed at any point in time, you would be open to taking those funds again because he wouldn't be in. You know what I mean? But we're starting to see where Seth Moulton, for those who don't know, he wants to run for Senate. Right. I think he's going to run against Ed Markey, it looks like. So I feel like he's doing this because he wants to try to get that Senate seat.
Well, and don't tell me, well, okay, I'm not taking money from AIPAC anymore. I've taken so much from them. I've taken enough from them now. What the heck? If I never get another dime, it won't matter at this point. And I'm supposed to believe you, number one, who believes these people anymore? And last but not least, I think that, it's at a point where you're just trying to win. You can tell me about who you're taking money from or who you're not taking money from. Have you supported these policies? Yes, you have. Yeah. And the safe bet is consistency. My bet is if you've supported these policies, you'll continue to support them. Have you come out and said, you know what, I've had an epiphany here. What I've been doing is wrong. I can't support policies. I don't care if it's Israel or anybody. I can't support policies that are wrong. So what? No, I'm not going to take money from AIPAC, but I'm just going to keep doing the same thing I've done. The issue is not that you're taking money from AIPAC. If AIPAC was to say to me, Garland will give you $1 million, and but you just keep doing what you're doing. Well, I wouldn't take it because they Charlie Kirk me as soon as I found out that I wasn't going to do what they want. But you get my point. The issue is not that you're taking money from AIPAC. The issue is the policy decisions that you are making. So whether or not, let's say let's say for the sake of argument, there's a person who is in Congress and they say, I won't take a dime from AIPAC ever. And we say that's a good thing. However, I'll support Israel with everything they do. I don't need their money. I just love them. I'll support them in everything they do. I think they should kill more people, but I'm not going to take money from AIPAC. The issue is not that you're taking money from AIPAC. It's the policies that you are supporting, the policies that you are pushing and enacting. And whether or not just stopping to take money from AIPAC, so what? It's like you've heard the term about a dry drunk, a person who's an alcoholic who stops drinking, but they still maintain all of the characteristics of an alcoholic, in their life, and their life still goes bad because they haven't gotten themselves together. Just because a person who is no longer addicted to a particular drug, they've really got to do some other work to rehab themselves so they don't fall back into the same patterns and hanging out with the same people and all of those things. So the issue is not that you take, so what? Stop taking money from AIPAC. Tell me that you're going to stop supporting genocide. And I don't believe you anyway.
Well said. Garland, thank you. Thank you so much for your time. Can you tell people where they can find you?
Oh, yes. They can find me on my YouTube. I'm on Telegram. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook, but my YouTube channel.
All right. Garland, thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. Look forward to seeing you again. Talking to you again soon. Bye.
Bye. All right, ladies and gents, that was Garland Nixon. Make sure you check him out on YouTube. Garland has a lot of foreign policy discussions, and he brings on a variety of guests. So check him out there. You can also catch him on the Duran quite often, actually, quite often. So, all right, ladies and gents, we do have quite a bit to discuss tonight. There is a bonus story that I forgot to mention. We are going to do a deep dive into Christians now starting to question who is really supposed to be in Israel. We're going to get into that one. It's a good one. I'm going to deep dive, and we're going to look at a couple of Bible scriptures. And I got some questions for you guys. I got some questions for you because we need to talk about who is indigenous out in those streets. Okay, tonight's theme is Ask the Right Question. Let's go ahead and give a shout out to everyone who is a patron. Thank you guys so much for your support. Really appreciate you, fam. Hey, hey, hey. All right. If you're interested in being a Sabby patron, I have 5 categories. Ultimate, Sabinators, there's Sabsters. Don't forget about the Sabbies because they be doing the damn thing too. And we also have a group called Members. Hey, hey, hey. All of their names are listed here. And you can also see their names scrolling across the bottom of the screen there on the ticker. And I want to give a shout out to a new Sabby patron. We call them newbies. Let's give it up for Mahamud. Welcome, welcome, and thank you. Based. Let's keep this party moving, shall we? All righty. Let's go to some of these comments here. Rain. Sabby, are you going to do what you did last election cycle where you cover the ballot measures per state or the candidates running, cover certain battleground states or races that are significant? Yes. Roger Meadows, friend of the show, he helps me with the ballot measures. I'll try to simplify it a little bit more this time. One thing I did receive for feedback is that the language sometimes that's in the ballot measures may be a little bit foreign to people who are not familiar. So I'll try to simplify it this time. But yes, I would definitely be up for doing that. Shout out to Bethany Shin, who just became a Sabby member. Let's give Bethany a big whoop, whoop. Hey. And thank you, Russ, for the super chat. Hello, everybody. Sabby, I'm looking forward to another great podcast. Let's go. Thank you. And thank you, Zoe. Thank you so much for speaking on this as a Trinidadian. I really appreciate it. TNT's PM Kamala Prasad Bissar is another U.S. puppet, sadly. Oh, okay. Trinidad and Tobago's leader. Gotcha. All right. And thank you for the tip on Rockfin, Dave. Thanks to Sabby Sabs for this presentation. Thank you. And thank you, Roger. Sab, the wife part was ill. I thought his mom, being director of Denzel Washington movie Mississippi Masala, about how his parents met, was ill. Yeah, man. Yeah, Garland's a researcher, so he's checking these things out. Okay, ladies and gents, again, tonight's theme is Ask the Right Questions. If you have not done so, go ahead and smash that like button. Thank you. And if you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share like a Care Bear. Let's move on to the next story, ladies and gents. Okie dokie. So last night, AOC and Bernie Sanders hosted a joint town hall on CNN. Now, I feel as though this is an effort to try to increase Democrat Party support because the support for the Democratic Party right now is in the toilet. And I'm putting that mildly, which is interesting considering, they're not in the White House. They don't have the House or the Senate. Republicans have all three branches. But a lot of this stems from Democrat voters feeling as though the politicians in the Democratic Party aren't fighting the way that they should, or they're not fighting hard enough. And I would say, well, that's because they're not really fighters. Like, they really would rather have the status quo maintained, right? So we can bring up all these different issues as to how things became the way that they are today. But ultimately, I would say the Democratic Party not having a working class agenda, abandoning the working class, definitely failing on Gaza, is a number of things that put them in this current situation, and things are not improving. There were a couple of things that were said during this town hall that I do want to discuss. And in particular, there was a comment made about Joe Biden. So let's go ahead and get into the first clip here. One of the first things they are questioned about is Zohran Mandami and if people should be supporting him. Check this out.
So it sounds like you're calling on Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer to endorse Zohran Mandami.
I believe that I do believe in endorsing the nominee, and I think it's the right thing to do.
Well, Senator Sanders, you agree?
Let me just add to that. She's much nicer than nicer to people. Look, take a look. You got a Democratic Party. It's no great secret that it's kind of in the doldrums right now. Everybody acknowledges that. You got a candidate in New York City, Zohran Mamdani. Guy who's running an extraordinary campaign. He has something like 80,000 volunteers knocking on doors. Mm-hmm. He is bringing people out who never voted. He is bringing blacks and whites and Latinos and Asians, everybody together around a really strong agenda talking about affordability in New York. What is not to like? This should be the kind of candidate that Democrats want in every state in the country. Strong grassroots campaigns, a willingness to take on the oligarchs and the big money interests, stand up for working class people. So really, that's a great question, but it's very deep because it talks about the future of the Democratic Party.
But are you speaking directly to Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer when you deliver that message?
Sure I am. Hakeem, you watching this? I don't know. All right. But look, it is two things. Of course, Alexandria is right. He's the Democratic nominee. How do you not support the Democratic guy? But more importantly,
Who else are we going to support?
he's a great candidate. This should be the model. What we want, we got political problems in America. People are giving up on the political process. He's getting people excited, getting them involved. I would like to see that take place in 50 states in this country.
So let me go ahead and respond to this, because here's the thing. You know who else had a lot of volunteers? And they had a lot of volunteers all across the entire country. Probably one of the biggest political movements I saw after Obama's presidential campaign. Bernie Sanders did. Twice. Bernie Sanders had energized young people all across this country for the 2016 presidential election and the 2020 presidential election. He got people excited. He said we were going to have a political revolution. That did not happen, because the Democratic Party cheated in 2016 and gave states that he won to Hillary Clinton during the Democratic National Convention. The Democratic Party has super delegates. That's how they were able to cheat then. In 2020, he was more popular then, according to the polls. And in 2020, what did they do this time? Barack Obama made a phone call, told all these other candidates to drop out of the race so it would help Biden going into Super Tuesday. And next thing you know, then Bernie decides he's going to drop out too and tell people to go ahead and support Biden, just like he told people to go ahead and support Hillary Clinton. So Bernie knows the answer to his own question when he says what's not to like. He knows that it's the establishment, it's the Democratic Party, and in particular, the Democratic Party leadership. They do not want to endorse anybody who is not, quote unquote, pro-Israel, and by pro-Israel, I mean Zionist to their standards. They are not going to endorse or support anybody who actually has a working class agenda. They're not going to support or endorse anybody that calls themselves a democratic socialist. Same reason why they didn't support or endorse Bernie. So Bernie already, he knows why, right? So here's the thing. We have to ask the right questions, right? at this point in time, Bernie Sanders and AOC, and I do believe that the oligarchy tour that was done was a way to put AOC out there in front of a lot of people to see if basically to prep her for a race against Chuck Schumer or a presidential run. I believe that Bernie is prepping AOC to kind of step in his shoes. That's what I feel this is really all about. And then also, of course, they're trying to increase support for the Democratic Party. Right? But see, the problem is all that energy that Bernie was able to, I guess, garner at that point in time, it kind of just went by the wayside when he told everyone to vote for Biden, just like it did when he told everybody to vote for Hillary Clinton. But in 2020 in particular, he said if he lost, he would still be out there outside in the streets with his people. That did not happen. He told people to give Biden a chance. During Biden's presidency, he constantly made excuses for Biden. Of course, he did say he would like to have Medicare for all, but he constantly defended Joe Biden, and both of them did, actually. When Biden was running for re-election, they endorsed him, they supported him. So a lot of the energy that was happening then, some of that has gone to support Zohran Mamdani. But then there's a good portion of us that just kind of checked out. Because there's no way, and I said this before, you can't tell me all the rallies and things that I saw when you have thousands and thousands of people to come to see you, but Joe Biden comes here and has a couple hundred. There's no way you can't tell me that the Democratic Party didn't make it so that Bernie would not be the nominee again in 2020, like they did in 2016. So they send Bernie Sanders and AOC out there for this town hall. And it's interesting, CNN is allowing this now. And the reason why CNN is allowing it, we have to ask the right questions. They are allowing it because Trump is in office. This is not something they really want to pursue when the Democrats have the White House. So when Biden was in office, Bernie and AOC and the rest of them, they kind of get in line and they support the party, even though Bernie isn't even a part of the party, but he caucuses with the party. It seems to me what I have noticed over the years is that it is only when Trump is in power that then it's like it's time to fight. So that's why CNN is supporting them and having this town hall, and they let them come on together like this. This is why, because Trump is in office. Listen to this part here. AOC is questioned about healthcare. You guys really got to listen to this part.
I want to bring in Jill Ireland, who is a Democrat who works in insurance. She's from Santa Barbara, California, and her question is appearing via video tonight.
Hello. My question is, do you think that taxpayers should be paying for the medical care of immigrants that are in the country illegally? Thank you.
Well, we already know, and this is a common lie that Republicans have been repeating, that this shutdown is about Democrats trying to provide health care to the undocumented. And we already know that it is federal law and federal statute that undocumented people cannot be covered by the ACA, they cannot be covered by Medicaid, they cannot be covered by Medicare. Period. That is the law of the land. There are plenty of federal laws on the books. Now, the vice president has been trafficking this other misconception, saying that the emergency Medicaid program is providing health care to undocumented people. That too is a complete, just, I don't even know, whole cloth storytelling, we should say. The truth of the matter is that we have a federal law, as it should be, that any person who walks into a hospital in desperate need of medical attention receives that medical attention regardless of their insurance status and regardless of who they are. And I don't know about you, but me as a human being, I don't want to live in a world where if a human being is struck by a car or is getting rushed into a hospital, that the people in the ER surgical room are asking for your insurance information or asking for documents before they save your life.
But can I ask you on this to follow up? Because you said that it is federal law that people, undocumented immigrants, can't get Medicare, Medicaid, the Obamacare subsidies. Do you believe that should be the law, though? Or do you think undocumented immigrants should have access to federally funded health care?
I believe personally that health care is a human right. I believe that every person should be able to go to the doctor. But I believe that right now, federal law is the federal law. And that absolutely, that U.S. citizens and people who pay into our programs deserve to be covered by these programs. And I mean, once again, I do believe that the federal laws that we have on the books are appropriate.
But if
the
you
right
could
ones
choose,
to
do you believe that should be changed?
Pardon?
If you could choose, do you believe that the federal law should be changed?
I don't. I believe in a single-payer healthcare system where if you go in and you need a doctor, you can get the medical attention that you need.
So this question is going to have to be answered at some point, right? And this is something I think that progressives may not like to hear, but AOC's response to that question is that, well, my response is I agree with universal health care that, if you come to see a doctor, then you should be able to get to yada, yada. But that question is going to come up again, right? And that question, a lot of times it is going to come from the right. And if AOC is preparing to run for president in 2020, that question is going to come up again. What was interesting is that she said she agrees with the federal law as it is right now. So I don't know, because I kind of feel like she's kind of playing in the middle a little bit here. I agree with the current law to make it appear as though, of course, I don't want to break any laws. But then when asked would she change that? Would that be something she'd be looking to change? Well, I agree with the universal healthcare system. So she was deflecting a little bit there, not really answering that question if that's something that she would want to change. Now, here's the thing. I think the reason why she didn't answer it that way is because she knows that this is a controversial issue. CNN has changed a little bit over the past, I say 2 years, where they also have like Republicans on CNN now as well. Even in that audience, there were Republicans also in the audience. Everybody's not like a Democrat and, all that kind of stuff, how CNN was more so before. So I think she's trying to find a way to be careful with her words. But the reality is at some point, that question is going to have to be answered. The most shocking part here was the part about Biden, like what they said to Joe Biden in reference to Gaza. Listen to this.
So, Caitlin, when you talk about, are we overjoyed that the hostages are back, that prisoners are released, that finally there is peace, hopefully it lasts? Yes, absolutely. But I think this is not a time for credit. This is a time to think about American policy. Are we happy that we have given tens of billions of dollars to destroy the Palestinian people? Israel had a right to defend itself. They were attacked by a terrorist group. They did not have a right to go to an all-out war against women and children in Gaza.
And more.
So this is the both sides, right? So see what I'm saying? This is why they're allowed to be on CNN. Because here's the thing. Under international law, no, they don't have a right to defend themselves. An occupying state, an occupying nation does not have the right to defend themselves. And people who are occupied have the right to resist with arms. I didn't make up the law. That's what it says on the books. So again, I can't believe I have to say this in 2025. You cannot both sides a genocide. You can't both sides occupation. You can't both sides oppression. And see what I mean? This is why they are on CNN. This is why they're allowed on CNN. Because if they said what I just told you, they wouldn't have been invited on there in the first place. You can't both sides it. I don't understand why people, and Bernie does not take any money from AIPAC. I don't understand why people are so afraid to say what the international law says. And at Bernie's age, he can retire at any time. So I don't want to say he's trying to pursue a political career. He's done that. So I don't know what the holdup is there. I really don't. Now listen to what AOC says about that.
Moreover, on this issue as well, is that we may have an announcement around a ceasefire, But Gaza has been flattened. Tens of thousands of people are dead. Universities gone. Hospitals eliminated. With American-made bombs. With our tax dollars. While you and me and our families can't even afford to put food on the table. And so
let me pause here for a second, and I just want to respond to this. No, Space says he's Jewish. What do you expect? No, 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 no. There are plenty of anti-Zionist Jewish allies. Max Blumenthal, Katie Halper, Aaron Mate. There are plenty of them. And they would not give that response that Bernie just gave.
So I welcome the cessation of these bombs dropping in Gaza. But I don't, the devastation of everything that we have endured up until this point is not something that I think we should celebrate. The United States played a role in all of this destruction to begin with.
And so did AOC. Don't forget that she voted to protect Israel's defense system. Now, why is this important? Imagine if there was a mass shooter. It's almost as if to vote to allow Israel to continue to have the Iron Dome. She should have definitely voted against that, especially as if she's a democratic socialist. That's a no-brainer. You are allowing them to continue to attack and occupy the Palestinian people with no recourse. It's like allowing a mass shooter to go into a building, commit numerous atrocities, and at the same time, you're giving them a bulletproof vest to protect them. So she played a role in this too. Her votes played a role in this as well. And that needs to be said.
Enabling Benjamin Netanyahu in dropping all of these bombs by refusing to enforce our own American laws and the Leahy laws on the books, which says that we cannot be transferring weapons to forces that are engaged in gross human rights violations. Right. And we look the other way because we deem them an ally.
And you're saying that's not something that you're a criticism that you're just applying to President Trump in terms
of
support.
President Biden did it. President Biden did it, and I have absolutely said that to him in person as well. Bernie and I.
We spent a long time with President Biden trying to make the case.
I've given President Biden hell about this, and President Trump has absolutely been part of this problem as well. In fact, he was bragging publicly about Benjamin Netanyahu ringing him up and asking for all these kinds of bombs that he doesn't even know the United States has, and him signing off on it.
Can I ask?
Pause here for a second. Yes. Both presidents are complicit, Trump and Biden. However, I want to say something here. What Bernie and AOC just said right there about how they approached Biden about it privately, that would have been something really good to say publicly prior to the presidential election. Because here's the thing, okay? Whatever conversations that took place privately, none of us know about that. Nobody knows about that. Biden at that time, especially when he was still running and he refused to get out of this race, both of them still endorsed and supported Joe Biden. When Kamala Harris jumped into the race, of course, one of the big questions is what is going to be her position on the Israel-Gaza situation? And there seemed to be some hope there from some in the beginning where people are like, I think she's going to be more sympathetic. But then, she had those interviews and she said that she would not withhold weapons to Israel and she will always support Israel. I don't like this whole after the fact, let's come forward and say what we did that nobody else knew about at that point in time. If AOC and Bernie Sanders would have come forward about that at that point in time, same thing with Kamala. She wrote it in her book too, that she could not get Biden to budge on this issue. That should have been public. That should have been public. Because the thing is, it doesn't help anything now. It's like, it's like you're coming forward to say it doesn't help anything now. And who knows if they would have said that publicly, then some of the pro-Palestinian protesters probably would have been like, oh, okay, so it's Biden is not willing to move at all. He was lying about trying to do a ceasefire. But here's the tricky part. At the Democratic National Convention, AOC said they're working tirelessly for a ceasefire. We all knew that was a lie. So she played along with this game a little bit too. That should have been made public. Because Kamala didn't want to detach herself from Biden and all that stuff. And I honestly still don't think that Kamala would have won. But to the Oracle's point, a public critique invites public pressure and increases the likelihood of a course correction. Right. There's all this after the fact. Well, let's tell you what was really going on at the time that you guys didn't know about. However, instead of making that public, this is what AOC decided to do. You see, she made that video. Remember they made the video where she said Jill Stein was being predatory? And you can have whatever opinions you have about the Green Party. I've had my criticisms about the Green Party, but I talked to them about it, either face-to-face or on this show. She spent her time making this video attacking Jill, who was correct on the Gaza position, had the correct position, when she should have made that video about Joe Biden. Remember this?
You're just showing up once every 4 years to do that. You're not serious. You're not to me, it does not read as authentic. It reads as predatory.
Jill here. I'm about to board, but very quickly, I just wanted to thank AOC Pelosi so very much for her very authentic concern about growing green power. Clearly, AOC is the attack dog du jour, and the Democrats are running scared, and they should be, because who wants to support a genocide? Who wants to vote for a genocide? And if there's anything that's predatory here, it's saying that your candidate is working tirelessly for a ceasefire when actually they are actively funding and arming genocide and actually refusing to even consider an arms embargo, which would bring the genocide to a screeching halt.
Yeah, so you guys remember this, right? So all the efforts that she was doing on social media at that point in time to attack Jill Stein, she should have made a video about what her and Bernie just said about what happened with Joe Biden. That should have been public. They should have told people Biden is not willing to budge on this. I mean, why not? They had no problem going after Bernie. Elizabeth Warren had no problem in 2020 saying that Bernie Sanders was a sexist and told her that a woman couldn't win the presidency. But they didn't do it because they still want to be in the club. AOC does have political aspirations. So she's looking at her political career. So I'm going to play nice in public and say Biden's great and he's doing a great job. Behind the scenes, I'll go to him about this genocide issue, but just not being transparent. And one of the things that we talked about before on this show in particular is the transparency, right? So one of the things I do want to remind people, as much as she came after Jill Stein, when you go back to AOC's 2018 platform, it is a carbon copy from Jill Stein's 2016 campaign. That's where this came from. A lot of this, the peace economy, the federal jobs, the gun control, remember abolish ICE? That wasn't discussed once Biden was in office. Now they're talking about it again. But when Biden was in office, Democrats fund ICE too. Solidarity with Puerto Rico, climate change, all these things. This came from Jill Stein's 2016 campaign, and it was funneled into a corporate, corrupt party. So this town hall, in my opinion, is really about the future of DSA candidates like AOC, possibly a presidential run. But when she was questioned about whether or not she was going to run against Chuck Schumer, they didn't like this question.
But are you saying that Senator Schumer should not be worried about a primary challenge from you?
I mean,
All right.
no.
Let me jump in on this one. This is what we're
talking about.
That's exactly what we're talking about.
This is what we're talking about.
You have a country that is falling apart. We had a housing crisis, a healthcare crisis, an education crisis. massive income and wealth inequality, a corrupt campaign finance system, and the media says, "Oh, what are you going to run for?" Nobody cares. So one more time.
Nobody cares. It's the House Speaker and President Trump and the Vice President saying it.
All right.
Pardon?
Well, of course, they're saying it to deflect attention away from the real issue.
Exactly.
And here, let me tell you what the real issue is. Let's see if CNN talks about it. We're living in the richest country in the history of the world, right? All right, you tell me why we're the only nation not to guarantee health care to all people, the only nation not to guarantee paid family and medical leave, why we have a $7.25 an hour minimum wage, why we have 800,000 people sleeping out on the street, why we have a president who denies the reality of climate change, why we have oligarchs on top who have more and more power every day. Let's talk about that issue, not her own political future. She'll decide that.
Now, he has a point. The economy is a mess, and that does need to be the focus. But it doesn't help that AOC had her own staff members came forward and reported to Axios that they were prepping her for a run. So that's where that is coming from, right? So that's why they did ask that question. What this means is this. I'm going to show you this poll, and this is not good for the Democratic Party. This is why they got AOC and Bernie out there. Remember, Democrats do not have control of the House, the Senate, of course, obviously, not the White House. Look at these numbers.
Okay, so, if you go back 6 months ago, you go back to April, Kate Baldwin, what were we looking at? Well, we were looking at the Democrats with a very clear shot of taking control of the U.S. House of Representatives, according to the Kalshi prediction market odds. We saw them in an 83% chance. But those odds have gone plummeting down. Now we're talking about just a 63% chance, while the GOP's chances up like a rocket, up like gold, up from 17% to now a 37% chance. So we'll look like a pretty clear, likely Democratic win in the House come next year. Has become much closer to a toss-up at this point, although still slightly leaning Democratic.
This is what I have been telling people about. This is what happens when we have a ratchet effect. When you have a Democratic Party that stops change from moving to the left, and I mean the real left, and you have a Republican Party that moves things further to the right, you get this ratchet effect. And ultimately what ends up happening is people they'll boomerang back and forth. So some of the people who voted for Biden in 2020 voted for Trump in 2024. Economic reasons for a lot of them. I talked to the voters on the ground. So then you'll have this other boomerang effect where they may go back to the other party because they're still having the economic issues. The problem is it doesn't get ultimately solved for working class people because both parties are corporate and corrupt. And until you get big money out of electoral politics, there's always going to be this issue. And ultimately, what you are finding now is that the country is moving further to the right. This is something that I warned people about, that if the Democratic Party did not get on board with policies that were going to benefit working class Americans, people who need health care, which a lot of people in this country do, people who need to make a living wage. Stop coming to me with the $15 minimum wage. That is past due. You can't live off that in most of these states anyway. People need a living wage. If the Democrats flipped on this, if they were not able to give to the needs of the working class, that what would ultimately happen is that people would go over to the other team, and a lot of them are independents, would go over to the other team because that team let them down. And this back and forth we've seen, haven't you guys noticed? Since Obama, we haven't had a president that has had 2 terms consecutively. Trump won in 2016, lost in 2020. Biden won in 2020, lost in 2024. Trump wins in 2024. So the economic issues are crucial. And until the Democratic Party is actually prepared to implement these policies that are going to benefit the working class, this is going to continue to happen. I've been sounding this warning for so long. That's why you're seeing these numbers change like this, where the Republican Party, they're getting gains and the Democratic Party is not. And then ultimately, another thing that does not help is that people are looking back, and even some of my friends, because I have friends of different political ideologies, and most of my friends are just like, screw all the politics. They're not even interested. But friends of mine who are Democrats, They said the thing that frustrates them the most is that Trump is showing them everything that the Democratic Party could have done. And that's why they're frustrated. And that's why they're like, this is just ridiculous. I'm not happy with the Democratic Party at this point in time. So AOC and Bernie Sanders town hall, that is an effort to try to increase that support there for the Democratic Party because it's been in the toilet. And here's the thing, with all the policies that Donald Trump has passed, if anything, you would think support would increase for the Democratic Party, but that's not happening. So what does that tell you? We have to ask the right question, ladies and gents. We have to ask the right question. Because these politicians, they don't really, some of them may want change, but not to the point where they're willing to give up their career for it. Got to ask the right question. Let's go to some of the comments, ladies and gents. Eric, can we go to part 2 of Type VNC? Thank you. All right. And thank you for the super chat, Kevin. Not a good Christian at Substack. I have 3 posts extensively critiquing the Zionist misinterpretation of scripture. Ooh, interesting. I'll have to check that out. The INI, Sabby, should we all just come together as independent because both sides are getting paid for the foreign agenda? I've been asking all of you guys, definitely, people need to register as independents. I'm registered as no party affiliate because I'm in Massachusetts. We don't really have that independent option, but it's a similar thing. I think people need to, number one, register as independents, especially as Black voters, really need to register as independents. The Democratic Party ain't doing nothing for us. The Republican Party ain't doing nothing for us, right? So our vote isn't owed to anybody. And I think that's something we really got to understand. That's a really good question there. I would hope that everybody could at least come together against genocide. I could hope that at least. Thank you, New York Varsity. You know what's happening, Sabs. Bernie and AOC are the masters of jumping in front of the parade after the work is put in. Unity by convenience. Interesting point. Thank you, Tyler. Look at who funded AOC's career to millionaire Zios. Yeah, we reported that on here. That's why she was stronger against what Israel was doing when she ran for Congress the first time in 2018 than she is now. Thank you, Andrew. Anyone who takes these Democrat sheepdog twins seriously is still willing to be taken for a ride. Professor Zinkas, Chris Hedges talks about this a lot. If a left populist doesn't occupy the White House, a right-wing populist demagogue will rise. This is exactly what we mean by Obama brought us here. There you go. And thank you, Lewis. Love and respect to all that you do, Sabby. Thank you. Thank you, Measured Man. Both sides let me down years ago. Malcolm and Fred warned us. Puppets chase clout. Tamika Mallory called Black folks dumb. Sabby preaching the truth. Wake up, my people. No kings, no handlers. Yeah, man. This is why I don't like doing the team partisan thing. Let's get the Rumble rant. And then we're going to go into the deep dive. Thank you, Goo. CBC Fifth Estate just airing right now, funding the occupation, which investigates Canadian charities being used to invest in illegal settlements. Yeah, it's bad, man. It's bad. New Jersey, Canada, all involved in the settlement action. Let's keep it moving. Okay, we're doing pretty good time. Okay. I told you on the call-in segment that I was going to do a deep dive into the Christianity and the Israel of it all, because I have had questions for quite some time, and apparently I'm not the only one. You're going to see 2 Christian women who are going to expose who the true indigenous people are and what this whole Israel concept is really about. I told you on call-in, I really do believe, and we're going to see who actually, translated this King James Bible. I really do believe that we have been played. I really do believe we've been taken for a ride. And if I am correct, I think that we have been a part of probably the biggest psyop of all time. And that is the Protestant denominations and this relationship with this Zionist colonial state of Israel. Check out this video here. We have two. We're going to start with this one. So they are starting to ask questions. Listen to this.
Let's start with our personal backgrounds of what we were taught about Israel or what we believed about Israel prior to October 7th, 2023.
Yeah.
What did we know, hear, and or believe about Israel?
We already know that I grew up in a very conservative home as a pastor's kid. How I viewed Israel was the verses that we hear a lot of, like, those who bless Israel will be blessed. So I viewed it as that Israel as a country is special. It's chosen. Basically, we always want to be on the side of Israel. Always want to be an ally to Israel.
Who's we?
Christians.
Okay.
Well, and I would say America. I grew up with that understanding.
I was raised very Southern Baptist, very normal for our location currently. Definitely evangelical, conservative, Bible Belt, Southern. Not a surprise. And very much so raised in dispensationalism, rapture theology.
Yes.
And I remember reading the Left Behind series in late middle school and just thinking, this is the center of my faith.
Wow.
These things are going to happen. And I have to be one of these, the forefront of one of these people. And it just shot me right into it. I'm not an expert on it. I'm not teaching classes on it. I don't know how Israel falls in all of that, but I know that it was the belief that it was the epicenter of the whole thing.
Yeah.
And Jews were special and set apart in a different way. And just because they didn't believe in Christ, they were still God's people. And it was this whole thing. So all of my understanding of modern day Israel was wrapped up in end times theology.
And I completely understand where she is coming from. I told you guys before, I grew up in the church, and, I started asking questions as I got older, and apparently they weren't too fond of that, and it is what it is. And I'm not here to shame anybody for their religion. That's not my style. People can believe what they believe. And people also have different forms of spirituality. But to this point, what this woman just said here, that's what many of us were taught that grew up in the Protestant denominations, that the rapture would happen and that we had to have this relationship with Israel if we wanted to, be taken up in the rapture, and that when, God would come back, that every knee and every head would bow and that everybody would basically be converted to Christianity. There's so much more to go into this. I don't want to get into all the specifics. I also don't want to scare some people because Revelations can be quite scary. So that's what a lot of us were taught. Then it gets to the point where you start to look a little bit further and you're like, okay, well, wait a minute now. Let's see who the indigenous people are. And people are starting to ask questions, especially after October 7th. People are starting to look into this a little bit more now. Again, these two women were raised as Christians. Listen to this part.
Palestinians have more ethnic and genetic ties to ancient Israel than modern Israelis.
Okay, than modern Israelis.
Yes. So current Israel is not the Israel of the Bible.
Current Israel, the state.
Yes.
Okay.
The people who are native and indigenous to that land actually do have genetic ties to ancient Israel. The people who make up modern day Israel are not from there.
Where are they from?
Mostly Eastern European countries.
Because of I don't know, but like the migration or something that happened?
Yeah. This comes.
Pause. Remember not too long ago, after October 7th, we had a conversation on this show about the indigenous people. And there were a number of times I told you guys that if you actually look it up, Palestinians are Semites? So when people say that something is anti-Semitic, the Palestinians are Semites. It's not just Jewish people, it's also Arab people as well, right? So remember that it was Britain that decided that this is going to be a homeland for the Jewish people. And remember, the Rothschild were a part of this. Lord Rothschild, we went through this whole thing before as well. Theodore Herzl, the father of Zionism, was also, they made this decision, is that this is where they would go so that they would be safe, a safe place for them, of course, after the atrocities of the Holocaust, right? So before that migration, you had Palestinian people there. There were some Jewish people that were already there as well. But when this move happened and they came in, what essentially the goal of Zionism was for that place to only be for them. So we're talking about, these are people coming from Russia, Ukraine, Poland, what she said, like the Eastern European countries, coming over into a land that was already occupied. Sound familiar? But the ultimate goal was to make it so that it was only for them. So that meant the entire Zionist project was meant to push the Palestinian people off of that land. And before they even decided that Palestine was going to be the place of settlement, did you know they even looked at countries in Africa, like Uganda? So that plan was always to get them out of there and keep it just for the settlers. But obviously, if you try to push a population of people out, there is going to be some type of resistance. Keep that in mind when you think about the Iron Dome. That's why the Iron Dome is there, because they knew that the people would resist. So there was the Nakba. They pushed the Palestinian people out. A lot of the Palestinians that are in Gaza are refugees. And then you have Palestinians also, of course, in the West Bank. There are some Palestinians in Israel, but of course, not as many in the West Bank or Gaza. And even the Palestinians that live in Israel, especially the Christian Palestinians, have come forward and talked about the mistreatment that they have as well. The point is this. As I said before on this show, I don't remember anything in the Bible saying anything about this land is supposed to be for these Eastern Europeans. And that's if you even believe that. So the settlers that you see there from Poland, New Jersey, Brooklyn, they're settlers. They're not indigenous to the land. They moved there. They changed their name to make it sound like they are indigenous. Let's continue on. Listen to what she says here.
Comes from a historical professor, and he is brilliant. The majority of Palestinians are of Jewish descent. The majority of Palestinians, the people who are being annihilated right now, are of Jewish descent and are ethnically more Jewish than the European and American Jews who went and created Israel.
What did I tell you? See what I mean about the PSYOP? What did I tell you? They're indigenous. Let's continue.
So every time a Palestinian is murdered by an Israeli, a person who's more Jewish is murdered by a person who's less Jewish. It's true that the Israeli is practicing Judaism or is a secular Jew. And it's true that those Palestinians who are Christians and Muslims, whose ancestors converted to Christianity and Islam, but it's just a weird, ironic twist that the people who are closer related genetically to ancient Israel are the people who are being annihilated right now.
Mm-hmm. Mind-boggling.
Yes, it is.
Sound familiar? Yeah. So we're going to point to a couple of things here. All right. So number one, if that is the case, what she just told you, which is what I believe based on the research that I have read, it makes more sense. That is the case. They're the indigenous people. Then let's go all the way back to the Bible days. If that's true, then that would mean that Jesus was a Palestinian Jew. And if that's true, then who is the picture of the white man with the blonde hair and the blue eyes in all of these churches? How do we know what Jesus actually looked like? Because the only time I remember in the Bible where they talk about a description of him is Revelations. And if you know of another time, let me know. I'm open. Let me know. Is Revelations where they said that, and he had hair of wool. Remember all this? So how do we know that the picture that you see in a lot of these churches, and a lot of black churches too now, don't get it twisted, this pale-faced man with long white hair and blue eyes, how do you know that's what Jesus looked like? Hello? Because see, here's another thing. Let's open up this here as well, because we're going to go a little bit deeper. Listen to what Hagee said here. This is Christina Amanpour. I think that's her name. Yeah, Christina Amanpour. Listen to what he said about why we have to have this relationship with Israel, and he gives the biblical reason.
You said God's foreign policy statement?
Yes.
God has foreign policy statements?
Absolutely.
And his is pro-Israel?
Concerning the Jewish people, that's his foreign policy statement.
Hagee is a Zionist, a Christian Zionist.
A Christian Zionist is someone that believes that the Bible supports Israel. God begins in the foreign policy statement of Israel in Genesis 12:3, saying, I will bless those who bless you, and I will curse those who curse you.
We're going to look at that full statement. Okay. So Hagee is saying that U.S. foreign policy is because of a biblical scripture. That is Genesis 12. Let's take a look at Genesis 12. We're learning today. Class is in session. Let's go ahead and pull this up. Make this a little bit bigger for the peeps in the back. Based. So Genesis 12. This is what he's referring to. The Lord had said to Abraham, go from your country, your people, and your father's household to the land I will show you. I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse. And all peoples on earth will be blessed through you. Couple of things. Let's break this down into 3 parts. Number 1, the United States has separation of church and state. So even if you do believe this, why is the U.S. government implementing foreign policy based on a biblical scripture? There's that. 2, let's say that this is true. And we're going to get into who wrote all this. We'll get to that in a second. Let's say that this is true, okay? That this is what he said to Abraham. One of the other things that he said is, I will call you Israel, right? Like the people who follow you. Those are the followers of Abraham. But it really wasn't supposed to be a physical place. But for shits and giggles, let's say it is a physical place. If it is a physical place, and if it is true that the Palestinian people are the indigenous people, then that would mean that this physical place that is spoken of in the Bible is for the Palestinian people, not for people coming from Poland, Ukraine, Russia, New Jersey. If it is, you believe it's a physical place. 3, there are different interpretations of the Bible. So we can look at this and we can interpret this into different things. We can look at this and we can say, the Lord had said to Abraham, go from your country, your people, and your father's household to the land I will show you. That could be any land. I will make you into a great nation. That could be interpreted into other things. and I will bless you. The reference back then in the Bible, when he said great nation, that could be described as a community and not a state, the creation of a state. I will make your name great and you will be a blessing. Again, he's talking to Abraham and about Abraham. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, whoever curses you, I will curse. He's talking about the followers of Abraham. So there are different interpretations. And I point to this sometimes because I tell people, reading biblical text, sometimes it kind of reminds me of reading Shakespeare. And sometimes people can read Shakespearean text and they may have a different interpretation. And so I took like all the different Shakespeare classes when I was in college, and people don't always have the same interpretation of his text. So that's another thing to consider. So now we got to go to the next part. If this is the case, who translated the King James Bible? So let's go ahead and pull this up here. Make this a little bit bigger for the people in the back. Check this out. Who wrote the King James Bible? All right. Let's go down here. Let there be light, my brother's keeper, fight the good fight. A number of most well-known phrases in the English language originated not in novels, plays, or poems, but in a seminal translation of the Bible, the King James Version, which was published in 1611 at the behest of King James I of England. England. Sound familiar? Again, who was the one that decided that Palestine was going to be the place that was going to be the safe settlement place for Jewish people after the Holocaust? It was Britain. Let's go on. It is likely that the most famous translation of the Bible and was the standard English Bible for nearly 3 centuries. Many people think that it's so named because James had a hand in writing it, but that is not the case. As king, James was also the head of the Church of England, and he had to approve of the new English translation of the Bible, which was also dedicated to him. So if James did not write it, who did? To begin with, there's no single author. One individual, Richard Bancroft, an Archbishop of Canterbury, was notable for having a role of overseer of the project, something akin to a modern editor of collection of short stories. The actual translating of the King James Version was done by a committee of 47 scholars and clergymen over the course of many years. So we cannot say for certain which individual wrote a given passage. We will highlight this here. The actual translation of the King James Version was done by a committee of 47 scholars and clergymen. Who were the scholars? Does anybody know? Does anybody have a list of the names? Anybody? Who were the clergymen? Who are they? So this translation was done by men that were selected by King James I. How do you know that the translation that they created, which became known as the King James Version, how do you know that's the correct translation? How do we know? I'm not asking you to change your faith or anything. I'm just telling you to ask the right question. Because to be honest, we don't know. We can say we believe, but we don't know. Now let's put all these pieces together. King James of England, he selected 47 scholars and clergymen to translate the Bible into the King James Version, which is the one that is predominantly used at the Protestant denominations. He made that decision. He's in England. England is the one that decided, along with Lord Rothschild, that Palestine was going to be the new home for Jewish people after the Holocaust where they can feel safe. So What I'm trying to say here is this translation of the Bible kind of put things into motion. And you can even read the King James Version of the Bible, and you may come up with your own translations. So I guess my question here is, how do you know that what you have been reading or what you were taught from that version of the Bible is the correct translation? Because I'll be honest with you, I grew up in the church and I honestly cannot tell you, I can't sit here and say I do know. I don't. And if we go back to what those women were saying, and we think about the fact that the Palestinian people are the indigenous people, and you had settlers brought in to claim the land as theirs, which is not a newbie around the world. I still tell you this is the final stage of colonialism because Israel isn't done, in my opinion. The Bible, the Palestinians were the indigenous people. And at the same time, you have a pale-faced white dude picture in all these churches with blonde hair and blue eyes. If that King James Version of the Bible isn't even the correct translation, then ladies and gentlemen, a lot of people have been a part of the greatest psyop of all time. And if you want to put it together with what Hagee said when he said that the U.S. foreign policy is based on the scripture, well, then it all makes sense. I mean, it's like people have to listen. People have different beliefs, different religions, etc. It is what it is. I'm not telling you got to run away from wherever you are. That is your choice. All I'm asking you to do is just ask the right questions. Because we're talking about something that has been passed on to numerous churches all across the world. Numerous pastors all across the world have been preaching to their congregation for decades that Israel needs to be there. It has a right to exist. And it is crucial to our eternity, when in reality, they're not even indigenous. So if you believe that, you need to ask the right questions. Some people aren't going to like that segment. But here's another part to this. And let's say you don't believe any of that. If you are Christian, why are you okay with Christians being treated this way in Israel? Listen to what Matt Gaetz says here.
Evangelical Christians love Israel. It's a land with a 4,000-year connection to our faith. But with the current erratic spasms of the Netanyahu government, the love may be unrequited. Is Israel an unwelcoming place for Christians? A new look into correspondence between U.S. Ambassador Mike Huckabee and the Israeli government raises questions about whether Christians are being mistreated by Israel. Huckabee alleges that's what's happening. The ambassador sent a letter to the Israeli Interior Minister accusing Israel of blocking Christian groups from entering the country. As a private citizen, Governor Huckabee personally led Zionist Christians on such tours. Now, Ambassador Huckabee initially met with the government of Israel to plea for the Christians who wanted to come and enjoy the Holy Land. But those pleas were ignored. Now Huckabee is threatening reciprocal punishment against Israel and their visa seekers wanting to come to America. He cited harassment and negative treatment of Christian groups. The nerve of Israel to demand America's weapons and money, but then refuse our touring Christians is astounding. About 3 billion people on the planet Earth tie their faith to the geography around Israel. And I believe everyone needs a little more of the golden rule. Treat others as you would want to be treated. Some will criticize this segment and say that the problem of Christians being harassed in or by Israel is overblown. But it's not me saying it. It's Ambassador Huckabee. Is Ambassador Huckabee an anti-Semite now? Because he's criticizing the government of Israel? Of course he isn't. I wonder if any voices inside the Israeli government have spoken about Christians being harassed or harmed. Here's Isaac Herzog, the president of Israel in 2023.
In recent months, we've seen very serious phenomena towards the Christian denominations in the Holy Land. Our brothers and sisters, Christian citizens, feel attacked in their places of prayer, in their cemeteries, and on the streets.
Christians in Jerusalem's old city say they are often harassed, spit on, and even physically attacked by religious Jewish youth.
But this is who they telling you that you got to support.
I view this phenomenon as extreme and unacceptable in any shape or form. This phenomenon needs to be uprooted.
Earlier incidents include the desecration of a Protestant cemetery on Mount Zion, an attack on international Christians during a day of prayer for Jerusalem, and harassment at a Messianic concert in Jerusalem.
We must respect the members of all religions. We've committed to this since the dawn of our existence. This is the most basic commandment of love your neighbor as yourself.
I'm sorry to end it right there, the look, the expression on his face. But again, like that's who they want you to support. And that's how they treat you. It's basically you're seen as a means to an end. Christians see Israel as a means to an end. Israel sees Christians as a means to an end for them. But I just see a lot of people, and I like I told you, listen, I grew up in the church, but I did start to ask questions. And the thing that I have to just say is that we don't really know. And we can say we believe, but I have no proof. I just don't have it. And if that is the case, we are looking at the greatest psyop of all time. All right, let's go to some of the comments and then let's go to the next story, ladies and gents. All right. Let's get to some of the comments. Daryl says, also, who printed the first Bible? Blue said, can you put the name so we can check it out ourselves? Put the name of, I guess I can add that in the chat, maybe. I can add the name. Thank you, Measured Man. Did you see all of them people sell stuff on September 27th for the rapture? I remember that. Why not give away what they're going to do with the money? Yeah, I know. I don't know, man. Thank you for the super sticker, Chief Raka. Thank you, New York Varsity. All but 3 PMs of Israel from 1948 to present have roots. Wait for it. From Ukraine. And where is our money going unconditionally? To Ukraine. That's a good point. Thank you, Resurrectmans. David Ben Gurin is from Poland. Thank you, Shockwave. Sabby, the Zionist settler colony, is a modern-day America. The Palestinians are modern-day Native American. The Zionist is a pilgrim settler. Here you go. Thank you for the super sticker, Michelle Sosa. Thank you, Resurrect. Says that pic is Serapis Christos. He might be talking about the picture of in the churches. Thank you, Ace Play. When the Muslims took over, the Palestinians converted to Islam to avoid paying taxes. Interesting. Thank you, Kenman. Sabby, the cool Sunday school teacher I never had. Thank you, Davida. Speaking the absolute truth is that they're great at deception. That Matthew 24:24 is taking off, waking them up. We're finding out. Thank you. Thank you, Shockwave. The pic of the blonde hair, blue-eyed Jesus is Pope Alexander VI son, Caesar Borgia. We Catholics know this is a con game. They running, you Protestants don't. Thank you, Davida. Brings it out, preach. Thanks, Black Noise. On Sundays, I grew up watching TBN with John Hagee as one of their pastors. That channel and CBN News are merely 2 avenues for Israeli propaganda to reach American audiences. Nothing has changed. And thank you, Om. Believe it or not, Christ, aka Imam Mahdi, Maitreya Buddha, Krishna, Messiah, world teacher, will be seen and heard as soon as we're ready. we won't be seen as religious figure. Hashtag Benjamin Cream, hashtag wiki quotes. Thank you, Shock Truth. Sabby, he killed all of his scholars in 1611 after they finished the Bible. Shakespeare wrote 46 books and is coded into the book. Count 46 words from the beginning and you will find shake, and 46 from the end backwards, spear. Wow, you guys are coming up with even more. Thank you, Wasim. Anthropologists in National Geography Special have stated that based on skulls of ancient Palestine, that Jesus would have thick black hair and brown skin. Say it again, Wasim. Say it again. Thank you, Shockwave. Zionists wrote the Torah, Bible, and Quran. Quran just came into current form in 1923. Prior to that, they were Muhammad scripts. As Garvey talks about in his speeches, you have all been deceived. Thank you for the super sticker, Mountain Star Studio. Oh, no, Mountain Star Studio just became a member. Give Mountain Star a big whoop, whoop. Thank you, Aladi. This is awesome. Will you explore what the Jays really believe? The Talmud, for example. I think, didn't we get into that with Katie? I think we got into that with Katie at one point on the show, Katie Halper. I'll double check. Thank you, Mountain Star. Thanks for the education and excellent presentation style. You're welcome. Thank you, Courtney. By the way, Sabby, that dude with the pale white skin and the long hair we've seen for years in black churches is Seth Rollins. And thank you, Daryl. It has been said that songs 46, counting 46 words, and then 46 words from the end of the chapter, respectively, reveals Shakespeare. All right, all right. Cool. If you guys have not had a chance to do so, can you smash that like button? Thank you. All right, let's go on to the next story here. Trying to go pretty well here with the time. Okie dokie. If you live in California, you probably already know about this, but this is interesting. Gavin Newsom has decided to veto a segment of reparations bills that have come his way. Now, for those who are not aware, Reparations Task Force was started in California a couple years ago, and they have been very active about getting this accomplished. Now, some people will look at this and they would say California didn't have any slaves. That's actually false. Remember, slaves were considered property. Slaves were sold. So slaves went around the country, and there were plantation owners that took slaves from the South and brought them to California as well. Now, a lot of black voters are looking at Gavin Newsom and they're just kind of like, really? And whether you support it or not, I do support reparations. I think it's quite interesting that he did decide to do something for a particular group, and I will show you who that is. And he did this recently. So it's not about not wanting to give what is owed, that debt that's owed to descendants of slavery. It's about helping certain people and not helping others. Let's go ahead and get into this video here, ladies and gentlemen. This was before the veto.
Reparations are so important because it rights the wrong that we were treated in terms of coming here as slaves to this country, and how we were treated, the worst of the worst kind of slavery that you can have can happen to an individual. We were not even treated as humans. We were property.
And why the time for action is now.
This report, it's evidence-based, it's data-driven, it has the facts, it's not emotional.
History, both national and local, is important, and at the heart of this conversation, California was not a slave state, but more than 4,000 enslaved people were brought to California between 1850 and 1860 alone, typically by plantation owners to work in gold mines and more. Despite California being established as a free state, there's a history of mistreatment of groups and people, from Japanese internment camps in the 1940s, in which those mistreated received a total of $4 billion in reparation payments, to the 1937 anti-Okie law, which made it illegal to bring a, quote, indigent person to the state.
It's just, and to bring something up here, because a lot of people don't know about that. Yes, reparations were paid to Japanese Americans that were a part of the internment camps, and their descendants also received cash payments. That was signed into law by Ronald Reagan. A lot of people are not aware of that. When we talk about reparations, we're talking about a debt that is owed. There was 40 acres and a mule that was promised to freed men at that point in time and their descendants. Some of that started to happen, and then it was stopped by Andrew Jackson. So that has not been fulfilled. So because this is not being entertained on the national level, some of the states have decided to start their own task force to talk about the wrongs and the harms that happen in their states, and California is one of them. Now, I bring this up to say this. Gavin Newsom, who was out there telling everybody to go vote for Kamala Harris in 24, the reparations activists had the number of votes that were needed to get this passed. The legislators in the House decided at the last minute not to do it because Gavin Newsom didn't want to sign it. Those activists said to their faces, you guys better make sure that this happens, or we will make sure that your friend, Ms. Kamala Harris, does not win that presidency. And here we are. Now, obviously, it goes by electoral college, but California was pretty much on path to be the first state to get this done. And a lot of people point to slavery. It's not just about slavery. It's all the other things that happened after that, right? So listen to this part here, and then I'll get into what Gavin Newsom did.
It's a place where many of the first pioneers of San Diego are buried.
This is San Diego's Mount Hope Cemetery. Yvette Porter-Moore, a local genealogist, wanted to meet us here. And that when we asked her why, she said this is her favorite place to visit because of all of the history that lives here.
Nathan Harrison was buried in this location in 1920. However, he did not have a headstone. It was an unmarked grave. But there was a gentleman who was a historian. He was doing some research, and he located where Nathan Harrison was buried.
Yvette says Harrison is a good example of how systemic racism over the years impacts the lives of Black people in California and the nation.
During the time that Nathan Harrison came to San Diego, he homesteaded on the property of Mount Palomar. And during this time, a lot of African Americans did not own property, but this man did. And because of the color of his skin and who he was not able to pass on his, his land to his descendants.
According to
homes that were stolen. Now, see, this is something, and look, there are things that happen in California. A lot of people know about what happened down south, but when my documentary comes out, you're going to see what happened in Boston and what's still happening here in Boston, which, again, people say we have this so-called progressive mayor. People don't realize just how racist Boston is. So we'll get into all of that. But Gavin Newsom, who apparently may be pursuing a 2028 presidential run, is going to need support from Black voters if he's running through the Democratic Party, which he obviously is most likely going to do that. Gavin Newsom, who is related to Nancy Pelosi, I'm not sure if everyone's aware of that. So we're talking about a political dynasty here. He's related to her by marriage. His name has kind of been thrown in the hat as someone who could run and possibly win, they think win in 2028. But see, they do things like this, and then they want to come for your vote. And then when Black people don't show up, then they be like, why'd y'all stay home, right? Look at this. Newsom rejects bills providing benefits to slavery descendants. Gavin Newsom vetoed bills that would have provided tangible benefits to those descendants, though he approved a state agency to determine who qualifies for potential reparations. And what did I tell you guys about this before? Agencies and studies, it's a cop-out. I told you before, oftentimes when these things are created, nothing really materializes from it that's really going to impact people's lives. But Gavin Newsom has no problem trying to materialize things to implement other lives. I'm going to show you who he decided to do something for. And this is the point that I like to bring up here. It goes on here to say, in 2020 was when California started the first reparations task force. The movement towards reparations in the state slowed as state leaders had decided whether to spend actual tax dollars on tangible benefits, and as the public remains opposed to providing compensation. Newsom, a Democrat, signed legislation this month to create a state agency that would determine who qualifies as a descendant of slavery. But he vetoed measures that would have given descendants preference in college admissions, home loan assistance, and restitution for property seized in past years by the government through eminent domain. This still happens today, where homes are taken from Black people via eminent domain. I covered a story about it a year ago. An elderly woman in South Carolina who had a house that has been in her family for generations, and they were coming to take her land and her home. So you'll see this when we show the documentary. We're going to do a watch party for the documentary. You'll see the homes that were taken from Black people right here in Boston via eminent domain. And so Gavin Newsom is like most Democrats, where it's like they want the Black vote, but they don't actually want to do anything tangible for the Black community. Every other group is able to make demands for their vote. I saw it with the Dreamers, right? We see it with the Dreamers. We've seen it with the Latino community. We see it with the Jewish American community. Everybody else makes these demands. But in particular, when it comes to the Black voting base, the Democratic Party is not willing to move in any way, shape, or form to meet the demands of the Black community. They would rather lose than actually meet our demands. Let's go on a little bit further here. I do want to also show you what Dr. Sandy Darity, he said here as well. That's going into, here we go. Newsom may have less political motivation than he did before as he weighs the possibility of running for president in 2028. A majority of Americans oppose taxpayer-funded reparations, and the nation as a whole is more conservative than California. And this is why some states decided to start their own task force here because of that, right? Governor Wes Moore in Maryland decided also to veto it, and he's Black. And then Gavin Newsom decided to veto it, right? So let's get into the part here from Dr. Sandy Darity. So Dr. Sandy Darity has done the research. He goes on to say he's behaved like most Democratic Party politicians, which is to some degree evade making a full commitment to reparations. Again, that's coming from William Darity, Duke University professor. Mr. Newsom has done more than any other politician by signing the bill that created the new state agency, Dr. Darity said, and that's somewhat telling, he said with a chuckle. Dr. Darity believes that it is financially impossible for the state and local governments to implement reparations. And this is true. I interviewed Dr. Sandy Darity on my show about a year or two ago, and I asked him about the local measures to pursue this. And Dr. Darity said that the states don't have the money to pay the debt that is actually owed, right? So again, he looks at numbers and economy and all those types of things. So he feels this should be done on a national level, not via the states. But the point is this: Gavin Newsom, he moved kind of funny, because see, come 2028, he's going to need Black voter support in order to win. The Democratic Party, you can't win without the Black vote. That's just a reality. He's not running as a Republican. And then people, they may remember this. Now, Gavin Newsom, about a year ago, he issued a public apology and said, we apologize for what happened in California. But when it comes to other groups, Gavin Newsom has been willing to bend over backwards. And this is the complaint that you hear a lot of people have. In fact, just recently, when you watch him squirm here, everybody take note to this, because Gavin Newsom was recently questioned about AIPAC, and this is important when you see who he decided to just help. He was on Higher Learning here with Van Lathan. Listen to this.
Interesting. You're like the first to bring up AIPAC in years, which is interesting. I will not vote for a candidate that takes $1 from AIPAC.
It's interesting. It's interesting. I haven't thought about AIPAC.
Mm.
And it's interesting. You're like the first to bring up AIPAC in years, which is interesting. Why did I say that? Not relevant to my day-to-day life.
Okay.
Which is just interesting.
Listen.
It's interesting you say that. JPAC perhaps more, but AIPAC less and less.
Okay. Fair enough.
Which is just interesting.
What's interesting about it?
That it's just interesting as you bring up AIPAC that it hasn't been part of. I'm just reflecting quite openly and honestly. Hasn't been part of the day-to-day.
Yeah. The only reason why I ask is because with that, what I'm talking about is lobbying in and of itself.
So Gavin Newsom felt that it was interesting that AIPAC was mentioned, even though we've been talking about AIPAC for years, and it's been more prevalent in the spotlight since October 7th, where more and more people have been talking about AIPAC. It's just interesting, just interesting. Here's why he was kind of dodging that, right? So peep this, fam. Look at who he decided to help. Governor Gavin Newsom has signed legislation making California the first state in the nation to establish a statewide anti-Semitism prevention coordinator to oversee all K through 12 public schools. The measure was driven by the Jewish Public Affairs Committee of California, a robust lobbying network often described as the state-level counterpart to AIPAC. That's why he was, a little squishy. It's interesting. That's why he was like that. So, again, when it came to us, he's like, oh, yeah, we'll establish a state agency and just keep it moving. But he can move hell and high water to help other groups. This is what a lot of Black people have been pointing out. This is what we've been saying. So there you go. You see how quickly some of these politicians can move when it comes to helping other groups of people. The moment Black people start making demands, best we can do is create an agency. Let's create a study. Because they support the supremacist. Gavin Newsom, you got to. If you support Israel, if you support Zionism, you support supremacy. And that's what Gavin Newsom supports. And the reality is, and I said this before, when the white minority is prioritized, we are not prioritized. So if you pay attention to what is happening in corporate media, the way that it's talked about is, we got to make sure certain people feel safe and all this kind of stuff. Look who they prioritize. They don't talk about us that way. They don't talk about us like that. They don't care enough to. You don't know, never hear them say, we got to make sure that the Black people feel safe. They don't care. I don't even think CNN will even go that far. But you see who they prioritize. So everybody pay attention, because see, this is my point when I said before, when people get mad because Black people don't want to come out and support. Now you see why. Because you can't keep doing that to people. You can't keep doing that to Black people and still expect them to come out and give you your vote. Everybody should look at 2024 exit poll results. That should have been a wake-up call for the Democratic Party. But you guys want to continue to just push Black people to the side, but you want to do something for everybody else. Why you can't do it for everybody? Like that's my thing. We are not a priority. But our vote is a priority to them. And that is why I continue to tell people, register as an independent. You don't owe these parties nothing. Nothing. So when you see people bring up Gavin Newsom for president for 2028, make sure you mention that to them and make sure you ask the right question. Let's go to some of the comments here, ladies and gents. The Oracle said, create an agency to study the matter until time turns over. The top is the bottom and the left is right. There you go. They kill me with that. Let's start a study. Jazz said, we will remember, especially us here in California. There you go. Thank you, Shockwave. Sabby, I sent you an email, subject line JMR 1865, dealing with reparations. Read at your timing, general contact email. All right. Thank you. And thank you, Lewis. I used to like Gavin, but he's just a Zionist. There it is. There it is. Thank you, Mountain Star. Gratitude and appreciation to Sabby dropping the beat. Thank you so much. Yeah, there we go. Can we get did I miss something? I did. I'm sorry. Thank you, Measured Man. Sabby, we need to talk. Look up my buddy Steve Pemberton and let's coordinate to help you with your projects. A Chance in the World, Framingham. I'll have to notate that. And thank you, Mountain Star, for this one. I did skip something somehow. Review Sister Minnie Phillips of Kingston, Jamaica. Bless up. And thank you, Shockwave Truth. Revelation speaks of those who claim to be Jewish and who are not. They are not, but the enemy of the Jewish people. Philistines, Jeffrey Epstein, Harvey Weinstein, their name is entomology linked to their tribe, Philistine. Interesting. That is interesting. Thank you for the tip, Roger. Got to reel in those CNN watching millennial and Zoomers, Sab. $15 helps. Number one, Sab. West Virginia poorest should be $18.44. 15 would only help Puerto Rico. Don't just register independent, run independent, vote independent. Thanks, Roger. This was exactly why Zionism was able to infiltrate the Black church. Civil rights movement, Dr. King, A. Philip Randolph, Bayard Rustin, NAACP, the Urban Institute, and the Boule all started upheld with Zionist money. JFK warned MLK and Stanley Livingston of the communist roots, but I think it was more Zionist. This is why Zios hated Malcolm, who saw through them. And thank you for this one. When the UN equated Zionism with racism, Rustin and Randolph had a fit. Google MLK Jacob Rothschild taking a picture together with MLK holding the Nobel Peace Prize. MLK supported Israel's right to exist, calling it an outpost of democracy and a marvelous example of what can be done. He also argued that criticism of Zionism often veiled anti-Semitism, stating that when you criticize Zionists, they mean Jews, you're talking anti-Semitism. He was a staunch supporter of Jewish people and spoke against anti-Semitism, which he saw as a blot on the soul of man. Yeah, but he changed his position after one of the bombings in Gaza, or I think it was Palestine. One of the bombings, he changed his position and decided not to go there to speak. Let me add this here. Christians saying they're being mistreated. By the way, why Officer Tatum was spat on. Thank you for this one. I was told that if you go to the Vatican and you go to the basement, they have a picture of Jesus. They don't allow for cameras or any video recording device because the picture they have of Jesus is black. Well, I tell you, oh my gosh. Okay, guys, let's continue on here. We want to keep it moving. Quick announcement. We do have the poster created for my documentary. I do want to share it here. Coming soon, Removed, Black Erasure in Boston. Again, I said this has been an awesome project. I really appreciate everyone that has helped me on this. That's the poster for it there, guys. And I took the picture, but I didn't make the poster because I don't have those kind of skills. So coming soon, guys, coming soon. We'll have the on-the-ground premiere, and then we are going to have a watch party here on the show. So I'm looking forward to that. Let's go to part 3, Eric, and we can get into the next story. Thank you. So Zohran Mandami made a statement recently at an event that he was hosting in the Park Slope neighborhood in Brooklyn, which is a particularly wealthier area in Brooklyn, right? So I used to live in Brooklyn, so I know I'm familiar with Park Slope. And he's trying to find a way to kind of lean in to the Zionist a little bit. And I guess kind of like not be as harsh of a critic for Israel. And he said something. Now, first and foremost, I do want to point something out. This outlet is the Free Press. That is Barry Weiss organization there. That's her outlet. Okay. So just keep that in mind when I show you the statement that he made. And then also, Olivia Reingold is also a Zionist. So just keep that in mind. Now, that being said, because I did some research to see if any other outlet also covered this event, even though this came from Barry Weiss's outlet, etc., and a lot of people are saying it's probably Zionist propaganda, Zohran Mandami has not pushed back on this at all. And I've seen him push back on statements that he said were incorrect before. He didn't push back on this. And then also, I saw the New York Times also covered this event. So we're just going to go straight to his statement here. Zohran Mandami meets the Jews of Park Slope. Let's go ahead to the statement right about. Oh, do I have to sign it? Oh, I got to do this. Hold on one second. Sorry, guys. I hate when this happens. I don't understand why I have to come back and sign into something. Okay. I think I can just pull it up. Let me just pull it up on Z Squirrel because Z Squirrel has it too. Eric, can you go to Z Squirrel's account? I hate how like nowadays you have to sign into these articles. Like when I already looked at the article. Let me just go here. Because I know Z Squirrel has it, so I'll just pull it up here. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Okay, here we go. Because they got a screenshot of it. So let's just see if I can grab that really quick. Yeah. They have a lot of posts. I'm so sorry, you guys. I just hate how you have to keep. Got it. Found it. Here it is, folks. Let me show you what they said. He said. They got a screenshot of the article, which actually helps a lot better for me. Okay, so here we go. I am not a Zionist, he said in a soft-spoken tone, referring to the Jewish right to political sovereignty. I'm also not looking to create a city hall or a city in my image. I'm going to have people in my administration who are Zionists, whether liberal Zionists or wherever they may be on that spectrum. And some of them, I'll know about their thoughts about Zionism. Many of them, I won't, because the questions I'll ask when I'm looking to hire them will not be questions about Israel and Palestine. They will be for the sanitation commissioner about garbage. So here's the thing. Some people saw this and they said, oh, he's basically saying that he's going to have Zionists work as a part of his administration because he's just not going to know, because he's not going to ask people if they're Zionists or not. But then he also says, some of them, I am going to know their thoughts about Zionism, right? So here's the thing, folks. Regardless of how people see this, this is not a good statement. This is not good. I don't understand why someone who is polling as high as he is polling, I don't understand why he's trying to walk this line of let me lean in a little bit to appease the Zionists, but not so much that it pisses off the pro-Palestinian activists that supported me and helped me win the primary, right? Either way, no matter how you feel about the statement, it wasn't a good thing to say. It's just like, it wasn't a good thing to say. And the way that I kind of look at it is this, right? So some people they're really taken to storm about this. A lot of the pro-Palestinian protesters who did support him, they're primarily the ones that I see online that are like, what the hell? You know what I mean? Like, what are you doing? What is wrong with you? Like that type of thing. Ali from Electronic Intifada said, it's good that Zohran Mandami is being so transparent so early. This is no different to assuring white supremacists, I'm going to have people in my administration who are KKK. He could just shut up, but he's instead choosing a publicly pander to genocidal racists. So Zionism is racism, right? We know that. But the thing is that he went to go meet with them. And at this point, like I said, even when you look at the numbers, he doesn't need to do this. That's the thing I think that people are like, dude, what are you doing? He doesn't need to do that. And so a lot of the pro-Palestinian activists that supported him and helped him win the primary, they're getting a little fickle about the way he's kind of walking some things back. I told you guys before, in the recent interview that he had with Mehdi Hassan asked him, oh yeah, you said you would arrest Benjamin Netanyahu if he came to New York. He kind of danced around that a little bit. And his response was, well, you know, I have to follow the laws of the city. You know what I mean? It's like walking some of these things back. The apology that he made to the police, I'll get into that in just a second. The reality is, it was not a good statement. He should not have said that. I personally, number one, I'm not trying to, if I were a politician, no, I'm not trying to bring Zionists into my administration. It's different than I am working at McDonald's and I'm hiring someone to flip burgers or whatever. And I am a politician and I'm picking people for my administration. You usually pick people that align with you politically. You don't usually just say, oh, we're just going to put everybody in. You know, how'd that work for Kamala Harris when she said, I plan on having a Republican in my cabinet? It's all over the place, right? He did well on this one, the one about Hamas. I will show you this one. They tried to trap him here, I think, on Fox News. Check this out.
Into one that's affordable for each and every New Yorker.
But, okay, I want to get to that, absolutely. But do you believe that Hamas should lay down their weapons and leave the leadership in Gaza?
I believe that any future here in New York City is one that we have to make sure that's affordable for all. And as it pertains to Israel and Palestine, that we have to ensure that there is peace. And that is the future that we have to fight for.
But you won't say that Hamas should lay down their arms and give up leadership in Gaza.
I don't really have opinions about the future of Hamas and Israel beyond the question of justice and safety and the fact that anything has to abide by international law. And that applies to Hamas, that applies to the Israeli military, applies to anyone you could ask me about.
Okay. One last thought on that. You have said that you would arrest Netanyahu if he came to the United States. You've been very outspoken.
Into one that's affordable.
It cuts off that point there. But he didn't fall for that trap. So that's a good one. I noticed that. I was like, oh, they're trying to, because they want to get that sound bite of he said that they shouldn't disarm, and we can go into the whole thing about international law, because under international law, they have the right to resist with armed force. But once he goes down that path, if he were to say, no, they shouldn't disarm, that's a wrap. That's a wrap. So I think he kind of passed on that one. Like I said, he didn't fall for that trap. That's the sound bite that they were trying to get. I don't understand this one. I don't understand this one. The message here to the NYPD.
Police officers that I spoke to, they don't want a behind closed doors apology. They want a broad public apology for the things that you suggested about them. Will you do that right now?
Absolutely. I'll apologize to police officers right here, because this is the apology that I've been sharing with many rank and file officers. And I apologize because of the fact that I'm looking to work with these officers. And I know that these officers, these men and women who serve in the NYPD, they put their lives on the line every single day. And I will be a mayor that
What changed your mind about it?
You know, I moved to the city when I was 7 years old. Yeah. I grew up here. And two of the things that I thought often about was safety and justice. And growing up here, learning about the case of the exonerated five, learning about Sean Bell, learning about Eric Garner, learning about Michael Brown. And then in 2020, the year where all of these tweets are referring to, it was the year when George Floyd was killed. And it felt like safety and justice had never been further apart. And it was actually Eric Adams in 2021 who said that New Yorkers need not choose between these two things. And so one of my focuses was, how do we deliver that justice? And now what I know, having represented 100,000 people in Western Queens, is that to deliver that justice, you have to also deliver that safety. And that means representing the men and women in the NYPD. It means representing the black and brown New Yorkers who've been victims of police brutality. It means representing the Muslim New Yorkers in my district who were surveilled on the basis of their faith.
68% of independent voters want more police officers on the street. And Cuomo, tomorrow night in that debate, he's going to say, I'm going to bring 5,000 more police officers to the street. Will you match that and agree with him on that?
I don't look to Andrew Cuomo for leadership.
Well, will you put 5,000 more cops on the street?
I've been very clear. I want to keep the number of officers that we have, and I want to make it easier for those officers to do their job. And what that means is that we allow officers to focus on serious crimes. And for all of the focus on the head count, we should focus on the retention crisis. When I started running for mayor, 200 officers were leaving the department every month. Now it's 350. And a lot of them are leaving because there's simply no way they can do their job in what's being asked of them. And to your point, however, Andrew Cuomo is going to say a lot of things tomorrow night on the debate stage. And frankly, I wish it was more like NASCAR, so New Yorkers could see the billionaires that were sponsoring him right on his suit jacket. Because this is a man who had 10 years. And I know now that it's politically convenient.
And he goes into what Cuomo had 10 years to do, which we all know Cuomo's a complete asshole. But the thing is here, he apologized to the NYPD because he had made a statement a couple years ago where he said the NYPD was racist. He didn't need to apologize for that. There was no reason for the NYPD, which stopped and frisked black men for years, whether you did anything wrong or not. He did not have to. I don't understand that. Like, that's the thing that really drives me. I'm like, dude, why are you apologizing? I don't think he should have done that. It seems like to me, Zohran is trying to, it's like he's trying to get the establishment on his side as well. And he's also trying to keep the progressive base on his side that helped him win that primary. All the anti-Zionists, all the pro-Palestinian, protesters that came out in that primary to support him. It seems like he's trying to have both. And on some issues, it's okay to just say, no, fuck y'all. It's okay to say that on some issues. You ain't got to be like, I will say this, at least he's showing you now instead of later. Right? He is showing you now, okay, well, maybe I can, and I can't help but go back to the conversation that Bernie had with him. We covered this on the show where Bernie told him to cool it and tone it down on Israel. And then I can't help but think if that ultimately had an impact because he has been changing his rhetoric a little bit. It makes you wonder. Here's another one here.
I want to take this moment because you spoke about President Trump and he may be watching right now. And I just want to speak directly to the president, which is that I will not be a mayor like Mayor Adams who will call you to figure out how to stay out of jail. I won't be a disgraced governor like Andrew Cuomo who will call you to ask how to win this election. I can do those things on my own. I will, however, be a mayor who's ready to speak at any time to lower the cost of living. That's the way that I'm going to lead this city. That's the partnership I want to build, not only with Washington, D.C., but anyone across this country. I think it's important because too often the focus on the needs of working class Americans, working class New Yorkers are put to the side as we talk more and more about the very kinds of corrupt politicians like Andrew Cuomo that delivered us into this kind of crisis.
So he's strong against Donald Trump, right? This is something that we've seen. Like, I think it's easy to say, F you, Trump. I think it's easy to do that. So he's strong with his attacks against Donald Trump. What I would like, I don't think this is going to, I really do believe, and I said this before, I believe that if he wins, he's going to govern more like a moderate. That's just what I believe. Because we're already seeing a little bit of sway here and there. I think he needs to push back on the Dem establishment and not try to like get along with. And that's why I was concerned when Bernie told him tone it down on Israel. And then that's when I feel like we started to see a change. He started to walk back how he felt about globalized the Intifada, right? So he started to walk that back, and we showed that. And see, some people are already changing their mind. They said when Mandami first won his primary and most of the left were celebrating, I tried very hard not to rain on their parade and said that while it was possible for his victory to be good for the movement, it would depend on how he led. I'm at a point now where I need him to lose. That's coming from Brenton. And he said here, promising you'll have Zionists in your administration, not even limited to liberal Zionists, is not how you expose the system and mobilize workers to expose it. This is just post-genocide rehabilitation of the genocidal party and actively harmful. Yeah, like I said, some people are not happy with what they've seen. This guy had a poll on Twitter. He asked, is Zohran Mandami a Zionist? 54% said yes, 46% said no. That at the time was over 6,000 votes. I just think that I don't know, you guys, it's sad. And then here's the thing. As much as he is trying to say, I'm going to be a mayor for everyone, they don't want him. And by they, I mean the billionaire Zionists. Pro-Trump billionaire Bill Ackman gives $1 million to anti-Mandami effort. So even though he just had that event at Park Slope, he just said that he may have Zionists in his administration. They don't want him. And they're organizing and they're sending money all over the place, $1 million. They are organizing to try to stop him from winning. And this is why I say, if you give them an inch, it's like they'll take a mile. Like you can't even give an inch. And I feel like Zohran a little bit, I guess he's trying to figure out where he fits in all this. And I just feel like that conversation that he had with Bernie Sanders, that's when I started to see the shift on some of the rhetoric, at least with Israel's concern. Now, some people will say, okay, but what does that have to do with him being mayor? I mean, that's a good question. Right now, as you can see, the numbers show, and this is why I said he doesn't have to do this. The numbers show he has an 87% chance of winning. Look at this. Yeah, 87% chance of winning. So I just don't think he needs to try to win over the people who are like, I'm not going to vote for you because, you know, you were part of the pro-Palestinian protests and you said you won't go to Israel. Okay. It just, to me, I mean, come on, man. Come on. And you'll even see here, and this is what I want to point out as well. This is a big part of this. Margaret Kimberly said, here's one more reason not to vote for Cuomo. He defends genocide. Do we really need another NYC mayor who defends genocide? Andrew Cuomo joins high-powered legal team to defend Netanyahu against the ICC's war crime claims. That was in 2024. Just to remind you of who Andrew Cuomo is. And that's why I say this. So people are like, oh, they have Cuomo and they have Zohran Mandami. What else are they supposed to do? Honestly, and I told people this is where there should have been another option, right? There's no Green Party candidate. There's no PSL candidate for mayor. Who's the third party candidate that is running as a leftist in this NYC mayor? There's no one. You have Curtis Sliwa, who's running as independent. He's not a leftist. But when New Yorkers say, well, look, I know he's fumbling on some of the foreign policy decisions, but I just want someone in there that's not going to increase my rent again. Because rent has been increased apparently under Eric Adams' administration 3 times, I think. And under de Blasio, he did a rent freeze multiple times, which tells you it can be done. So then I listen to those people and I get it. Like, they don't want their rent to continue to increase. I get that. And then I also hear those who are, the activists, and they said, no, we supported you because you said you would not go to Israel, because you said that you wouldn't push back against, the free speech, et cetera, all those types of things. Right. And I hear them too. And ultimately, I feel like what this really comes down to is the fact that there was no third party alternative. This is where I feel like the third parties dropped the ball. And I've told you guys a number of times where the Democrats dropped the ball, the Republicans dropped the ball. This is one of those moments where the third parties dropped the ball. They didn't offer an alternative. So that's why people are in this position. And it's unfortunate, but some of the shifting that I'm kind of seeing, it's like, that's why I say, I think he's going to, if he wins, I think he's going to govern more like a moderate. I'm just preparing people for that. Maybe he'll be able to get, like the rent freeze done. De Blasio did that. Maybe he'll be able to get that done. But I don't know, man. I think he's going to govern more like a moderate. If I'm wrong, I'll come back and say I was wrong. Let's go to the chat. Actually, we'll come back to the chat. People are waiting, and I do want to get to the last story because it's getting late. Oh my God, it's getting late. Can we go to part 3, Eric? Sorry, guys. I really did not mean to keep you here this long. I'm so sorry. Again, the theme is ask the right question. And we're going to do that now. Okay. So it looks like Candace Owens must have been right about Jared Kushner. Because now that they've established this so-called Gaza peace deal, which isn't really a peace deal, we've gone over that. Now we're starting to see what's really going to happen with that land. Now, see, if you follow the Canary, they reported this. Gaza to become a tax-free billionaire haven, according to Jared Kushner and Zio billionaires. You cannot make this up, ladies and gentlemen. So let's get into this here. Jared Kushner, Donald Trump's son-in-law, along with Epstein-linked Palantir boss Peter Thiel and pro-Israel Oracle billionaire Larry Ellison, plan to turn Gaza into a haven for billionaires. They plan to do so with a city of tax-free startups, with scattered server farms for cloud processing and artificial intelligence. That will supplement factories with cheap labor, and simple regulations will also smooth the way for normalization with Saudi Arabia. Let's come out here for just a second. This is what Candace Owens was talking about. So you see, and I'm going to show you the plans. This whole like Gaza, like peace plan, this just basically is paving the way to create this billionaire tax haven in Gaza. Jared Kushner, Larry Ellison, and Peter Thiel, they're all in on this together along with Donald Trump. Let's go on a little bit more here. Here we go. The article, which interestingly enough, does not seem to appear on the site's English search version. No, it doesn't. I noticed that the original article this came from. The huge economic project of rebuilding Gaza after the war is already attracting interest from countries, billionaires, and former leaders, and from Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, who aspires to establish AI centers in the Strip. This is crazy, guys. To foreign investors looking for enabling regulation. You hear this? More colonization, guys. Experts predict the development initiatives could serve as leverage to promote normalization with Saudi Arabia, also through Kushner's involvement. But the road there is still fraught with political and security obstacles. It notes that Ellison is ready to put down $350 million into the plan, which is in line with Trump's notorious and unlawful Gaza Riviera ethnic cleansing plan and fascist Israeli minister's Gaza real estate bonanza. That is Jared Kushner. They're all in on it. Now, I want to show you here. Let me make sure I have this. Is this the one where he talks about it? Yeah. I want to show you what these plans may look like. I have a video here, and then I'm going to show you the actual plans, because this is what they've been pushing for, folks.
What if I told you Gaza already has a business plan, not for peace, not for rebuilding lives, but for luxury resorts, AI tech hubs, and billion-dollar highways? I don't usually touch the Israel-Palestine debate in short form. It's too complex for 90 seconds. I save it for the podcast. But yesterday, I posted one simple fact. Most of the world supports the Palestinian people, while Israel spends hundreds of millions on propaganda to cover that up. And like clockwork, outpoured the uninformed hot takes. So let's throw one more truth into the mix. Last week, Netanyahu was in town with Trump. They unveiled a 20-point plan to end the war, built by Jared Kushner, Trump's son-in-law, and billionaire Steve Witkoff, Trump's special envoy to the Middle East and his partner in a crypto company, by the way. The plan? Keep the IDF in Gaza while a board of peace, led by Trump and overseen by none other than Tony Blair, the globalist who gave us the Iraq war, while he manages the transition. No ceasefire, no two-state solution. It's not a peace plan. It's a takeover plan.
See? And that's why, oh, by the way, the other reason why they need Hamas to disarm is because they want to be able to feel safe coming over into that land to enjoy what they have built. That's the other reason why they want Hamas to be disarmed. And let me tell you something else. For those of us who are familiar with rebuilding, look, you can look at the history here in the United States of urban renewal, when city officials made promises to different Black communities that we are going to rebuild the projects. We have this urban renewal plan, and it's going to be all pretty and nice for you to live in. But what they leave out is that while this rebuilding is happening, you can't live there. You are pushed somewhere else. The idea is that once it's all done, you'll be able to come back. But a lot of people, particularly in the US, were not able to come back after that happened. Same thing's going to happen here in Gaza. In order for them to build this Gaza Riviera that they want to happen, and a lot of billionaire money is coming in, folks, in order for them to build this, the Palestinian people aren't going to be able to stay there. Not all of them aren't going to be able to stay there while they do this rebuilding. It also means that I would not be surprised if they knock down the remaining buildings that are already there. So you see what I'm saying? So what they're going to do is have to temporarily displace them, and they'll say you'll be able to come back once it's all rebuilt. Only they won't be able to come back for two reasons. One, Israel is not going to let them come back in. The other one is they won't be able to afford to come back, because once it's rebuilt and it's redeveloped, it is going to be at a rate that the average person, especially Palestinian people, a lot of them are unemployed. We talked about this before October 7th. They're not going to be able to afford to come back there to live anyway. That's the next phase of displacement. So you see, that's what we knew from the start when Israel said they're going to come in. They wanted to wipe it all out and say to flatten it. This been a project. This project didn't come out of nowhere. I do not believe this project was created all of a sudden after October 7th. No. This project has been in the works for quite some time. I'm willing to bet on it. Let's continue here a little bit.
Because what they didn't show you was the actual blueprint for New Gaza, also drafted by Kushner and Witkoff, and backed by Saudi Arabia and the UAE under a shiny new name, the Great Trust. Gaza reconstruction, economic acceleration, and transformation. It's all in the slides. Gaza, Trump, Riviera Islands, waterfront luxury condos and hotels.
Yep.
Elon Musk Smart Manufacturing Zone, MBS and MBZ Central Highway, named after Saudi and Emirati rulers, and the American Data Safe Haven. Who wants to bet Larry Ellison gets this plot? And a nice little section for unexploded bomb clearance. Number one, this whole protect against the Muslim shtick, it's getting old. Saudi Arabia and the UAE are deep in this deal. Number two, how's Jared Kushner, who already took $3.2 billion from Middle Eastern sovereign funds, how is he in charge of both the official Israeli peace deal and the business deal to profit from it? And finally, why is it always normal for billionaires to kick people out of their homes so they can gentrify the land and call it stability? Their own documents say they want to turn Gaza into a $320 billion asset within 10 years. This is not charity. It's not peace. It's the same boys club running the same money play with human lives as collateral, apparently for your safety. Seriously? Does this look like a peace deal?
No, it's not. And see, this is a lot of people have been duped. And I was many of us, but I was one of the ones that came forward and said there was no ceasefire. Like, right? Like people were lying to you about that. Here's that plan that he's referring to, the Great Trust. So you guys see the picture. This is what they want to make Gaza. They want to turn it into this. And this is supposed to be this great place, for billionaires to come through. And again, like they said, a tax haven so that they can just come there. See all this? Gaza reconstruction. This is what I was saying. You think they're going to let the Palestinian people enjoy all of this? This is also why that, one of the reasons why that peace deal also did not include, FYI, also did not include a Palestinian state. That's another reason why I didn't include that. Now check this out. If you look at this map, it says a thriving Gaza at the crossroads of a new Abrahamic architecture. Gaza is an Iranian outpost in a moderate part of the region that will threaten IMEC, Abrahamic architecture, and undermine any future Palestinian governance. So that was the risk, the opportunity. See, this is what this is all about. Gaza is a regional trade hub at the crossroads of the ancient sea route, Egypt, Gaza, Babylon, and the incense trade route, India, Yemen, Arabia to Europe. So you see how they got the lines drawn here where Gaza's right there and yada, yada. Now they're talking about trade. I wanted to show you something else here. The IMC's bridge to the Mediterranean. This is Gaza 2035. So you see, they already got a plan. And like I told you, I don't believe this was decided after October 7th. This to me looks like something that was planned a long time ago. And as you see, it says right here in red, Elon Musk Smart Manufacturing Zone. So the red dots here, that's supposed to be Elon Musk Smart Manufacturing Zone. They've been planning this. Smart cities design. Sound familiar? Don't you hear them talking about smart cities here? So you see everything, and it's all, this is displacement, gentrification all over again. That's what you're seeing, folks. I do not believe they're going to let the Palestinian people stay here to enjoy that. What we got, again, wasn't a peace deal. It was just basically a delay because they plan to have this done apparently in 2035. Land trust and tokenization. I can put this link in the chat for you guys so you can see. I mean, it's all about money. And again, it goes back to the billionaires. Now let's show you just a reminder what Candace said, because she gave a warning about Jared Kushner and them a couple of days ago. Listen to this.
85% of Gaza has been destroyed in this pre-planned, controlled demolition of Gaza. Bibi Netanyahu is on camera explicitly before October 7th saying we need to hit them so hard that they can't come back. Jared Kushner is involved in, he will financially benefit from whatever they build in its place. Again, all of this began before October 7th.
There it is. So everybody see? Now let's connect the dots, ladies and gents. Before October 7th, remember what we said, that it was reported that the IDF decided to stand down on October 7th. Remember it was reported? And people were like, well, why would they do that? It was also reported by the New York Times, of all outlets, that Israel knew about Hamas's planned attack a year and a half prior to the attack. They had already received intel about the plans, but decided not to take it seriously. This is the same state that decides to shoot a dog because they said the dog is Hamas. But you're not going to take an escape plan seriously? Really? And the IDF stood down on October 7th. That was also reported by multiple outlets. Then you see this project here with Trump, Elon Musk, Larry Ellison, Jared Kushner, who's been a part of this from the get-go. Now you see what they want to build and what they want to develop. So let's just make a connection. What if Benjamin Netanyahu and all of them already knew about what Trump wanted to do with businesses in Gaza? And what if that is part of the reason why they stood down on October 7th? And then, of course, were able to use it as an excuse to flatten Gaza. That was something that Charlie Kirk also questioned on podcasts. I think it was PBD podcast, where he said, why did they stand down on October 7th? It almost seems like this is all planned. Let's continue.
Right? So we are supposed to believe that this isn't just, well, business as usual. We got done what we needed to get done, and now we can begin phase 2. But we're supposed to thank them. We're supposed to thank the monsters that did this. You guys have it in your heart to say thank you? Thank you to Jared Kushner and Donald Trump and Bibi Netanyahu, who are just business partners playing a role, convinced that we're all so stupid. I mean, let's roll the clip back from Jared Kushner when he sat down at Harvard, the Assad operation, to speak about their aims. This is February 15th, 2024. Take a listen.
There are real fears on the part of Arabs, and I'm sure you talk to a lot of them, who think once Gazans leave Gaza, Netanyahu's never going to let them back in.
Maybe, but I'm not sure there's much left of Gaza at this point. So
maybe.
You know, if you think about even the construct, like, you know, Gaza was not really a historical precedent, right? It was the result of a war, right? You had tribes that were in different places, but then Gaza became a thing. Egypt, you know, used to run it. And then, you know, over time, you had different governments that came in different ways. So you have another war, you know, usually when wars happen, you know, borders are changed historically over time. And so my sense is I would say, how do we deal with the terror threat that is there so that it cannot be a threat to Israel or to Egypt, right? I think that both sides are spending a fortune on military. I think neither side really wants to have, you know, a terrorist organization enclaved right between them. And Gaza's waterfront property, it could be very valuable to, if people would focus on kind of building up, you know, livelihoods. You think about all the money that's gone into this tunnel network and into all the munitions. If that would have gone into education or innovation, what could have been done? And so I think that it's a little bit of an unfortunate situation there, but I think from Israel's perspective, I would do my best to move the people out and then clean it up. But I don't think that Israel has stated that they don't want the people to move back there afterwards.
Everybody heard that? So there you go. It's right out there in the open for you. And another thing I want to say about this critique that not Charlie, Jesus Christ, this critique that Jared Kushner has about what Hamas decided to do with that money, which was given by Netanyahu. Yes, Netanyahu did fund Hamas. When you kick people off their land and then you fence them in and you occupy them and you give them money, you don't get to decide how they spend it. Period. But this is the plan, guys. They didn't decide to build this Gaza Riviera after October 7th. That shit was planned years ago. Let's continue on.
And Trump wants a Nobel Peace Prize, by the way, for the planned ethnic cleansing so that they could profit on the land and turn it into a beach town. So let me say this. This is our never again, okay? This is a Holocaust. A Holocaust just happened. A real Holocaust just happened. And we will never forget this. You need to tell your children what happened in Gaza. You need to tell them exactly who did it, exactly whose families were involved in this. And when you hear in the future somebody tell you, like, we're going to Gaza Beach for a vacation, you need to look at them like they are the absolute vermin of our society, because they are. They are. Their children will be cursed, okay? If you go and you play in the sand where you know that your forefathers planned to mass murder children, you will be cursed. Every person who steps foot on that, every family that is set to inherit what they did, they will be cursed. Your children's children will be cursed. Gaza belongs to nobody but the Palestinians. So when you begin to move the Israelis in there, and when the Trump Hotel gets built on there, I caution the rest of the world to stay far away from that cursed land, because something is coming. You can't commit that much evil in broad daylight and not think it's going to come back to haunt you.
Yeah, Measure Man said this is so heartbreaking. Yeah, it is. And the sad thing is that part what she said there about that being cursed land, etc. Democrats should have had that same response. Should have had that same response. It's disgusting. You guys know how I feel about gentrification. You know how I feel about people being displaced. That is one of my big, like, moments. Too many people have been displaced, have had their homes taken from them. And that's what this is. And that's why they rushed this so-called peace deal, which isn't really a peace deal, so they can get started on the next phase. And they need Hamas out the way so that they can do that. They can't have any type of resistance so that they can go ahead and do this. So I didn't know as much about Jared Kushner, but maybe I need to start asking the right question around that as well. You know, he's kind of like waited in the background a little bit, but it seems that Candace definitely knew some things about him. These are evil people. Like I just don't understand how people can sit up there and say that they love God and you do such evil. I don't know. I don't understand that at all. This is sad. It is sick. It's disgusting, but it looks like she was right about Jared Kushner. And here we are. And by the way, the outlet that reported that, Canary, they were talking about that from another outlet where that article in particular was written in Hebrew, as you'll see here. This is where the original source is written in Hebrew. You can translate it to English. But what did I tell you when we see that, right? That means that message is for the Israelis, not for us. Let's look at that poll. All righty, what we got here. What will happen to Gaza? We have 3,434 votes. Israel will steal it 25%. Trump and Kushner will steal it 11%. The US and Israel will steal it 49%. And Gaza will become state 15%. And then, I don't know. I can only do 4 options, but I also wanted to have an option that said, like, you know, this will not happen or the land will not be taken. But you can only do like 4 options, which sucks, you know. But yeah, those are interesting results there, ladies and gents. I think Eric's going to come on and close out the show because it's 11 o'clock and it's like, it's definitely past that time. I've been going for
closing time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, before you go, I want to show you one chat. Where is it? Oh, here it is. From the one and only Walter Beasley.
Hey, jazz legend Walter Beasley. What's popping? Still loving the content. Thank you.
Hello, and thanks to Walter.
Beasley. Yeah. Cool.
All right.
Thanks, man. I need to go to another live music show at some point, dude. One that isn't sponsored by Live Nation.
I know. Good luck with that, right? But there are still some independent things, yeah.
Yeah, I like going to some of the divey kind of like places and seeing some of the local artists.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, guys, that is it for me. Please have a good weekend. I will be live again on Sunday. Bye.
All right. And I'm just going to hang out with you all for a couple more minutes here and close things out. We also had a very nice super chat as well. Thanks for this one from Chief Rocka, giving a tidy sum. Thanks for that, saying for your film, meaning for Sabby's documentary. And we definitely appreciate that. Appreciate you. And thanks for this super chat from Trusting Success, who says, hey, Sabby, I think Zohran is scared of the Zios who holds the NY's coin purse. He might think they won't let him get anything done in New York. Not saying that's a good excuse. Thoughts? Yeah, and I'll also put up Skylar's chat here from earlier saying, you know, why is Zohran doing this? You don't need to bow to these people. You can support the police while also being honest about how jacked up they are. Yeah, I mean, the whole Zohran thing, it's kind of like you know, it's kind of too late situation, and you know, in a way, I mean, it's going to be Zohran or Cuomo, I guess, there's a small chance, but I mean, it's kind of the fight that the billionaire-run corporate establishment wants us to have is, you know, should we vote for Zohran? You know, should we not vote for Zohran? And you know, fine, you know, if you vote for him, if he gets in, if he doesn't, whatever. What we, you know, it's fine to have that discussion, but then, you know, let's transition the discussion into how did we get here? Why are we in this position where there is no third choice? You know, there is not even a Jill Stein style candidate in the race. And that's because, you know, the system is implacably corrupt. Just like our whole government is just implacably fully corrupt. And that's what we need to focus on and get to, and, you know, demand an end to, and have a mass movement where we get people in the streets, and, you know, not in the streets for just a manufactured no kings anti-Trump rally, but in the streets for a real grassroots no billionaires rally. And, you know, that's what, you know, I think Sabby and I are trying to get to and work on. And I'd say it's up to all of us to figure out how we can make that happen. All right. Thanks for this, Roger, Mr. Roger Meadows, who I think is getting a little frustrated with his choices in New York City and just saying, F it, Silva for mayor. I feel you, Roger. And thanks for the super chat, Will, who says, Mandami was great in the debates. Thanks for that. And thanks for the super chat, Justice by Karma, who says, that's why, in my eyes, through these vibes, it's our mission now to recognize and realize by manifesting a unified surprise on the rise at the size of a revolutionary leftist enterprise. Keep it strong, Sabs. Thanks for that one. And thanks for this one, this super chat, Measured Man, who says, New Orleans is the perfect example. As New Orleans, I can speak on this international gentrification. Yep, with what happened with Katrina, And thanks for the super chat, Connie, who says Zion Schofield Bible 1909 was a Zionist psyop. And thanks for this potato head, Sabby, that one, KRS-One energy. Wait, let me try that again. Thanks for this, Sabby one, that KRS-One energy tonight. All right, thanks for that. And thanks for the super chat, Trusting Success. So they're turning it into an AI hub. Where are the evangelicals talking about the Holy Land? AI holy now, worship AI, LOL. Yeah, and of course they worship, their prophets, right? And AI is a tool that they're using. And thanks for the super chat, Mountain Star Studio, who notes it's like blaming the Indians for the Boston Tea Party. I hear you. All right, so that is just about going to do us for tonight. I think I caught all the super chats. I'll just say in closing that if you want to see more about what I've been talking about, you can always go up to old 11 Demands. Get this right. There we go. 11demands.org. And I just wanted to quickly highlight from that, if you get into the part about the MCDS and money corruption demand solutions. If there's one thing I'd ask of people in general is to check out MCDS and see if it works for you. Try and use it, every day when you're discussing things and you're thinking and talking about political things. Yeah, thanks. Where is it? Here we go. Yeah, thanks, my peeps in the chat, all one same, and in fire. Yeah, here we go. And thank you, fire. Thank you, peeps. Yeah, because I think it is a good framework for analyzing things and seeing how things really work and getting to those demands and their solutions. All right, that's enough from me and enough for the show tonight. You can catch Sabby live next. Let's see, it's Thursday, so the next live show will the schedule is Sunday at 5, which I believe will be on again live then. Sunday 5 p.m. Eastern time. We'll see you all then. Thanks to one and all. And as our Sabby says, have a good night and keep up that fight. See you next time.